Chapter 287. In such a short period of time, this fellow's strength had risen at an astonishing rate. It seemed that he had obtained many harvests from the spirit spring. Thinking of this, the female cultivator's expression became even stranger. Since when could a human cultivator step into the spirit spring that was exclusive to monster beasts? Qin Yu punched out his fist and forced back the formidable storm wolf. Another wound was added to his body, but it actually saved him a breath of time. He stepped on the ground and continued to run forwards. Terrifying strength tumbled around him, shattering everything in his way. Beneath the monster beast's curse, he and the female cultivator in his arms were like lights to the monster beasts. Since he couldn't hide his tracks, he might as well rush forwards. More monster beasts appeared in front of him. These were several even more astonishing black bears. As they ran forwards, the ground rumbled and shook. Without pausing at all, they began to slaughter each other. Kacha! Qin Yu's chest caved in. It was unknown just how many bones were broken by the black bear's claws. He spat out several mouthfuls of blood before he felt his chest become a little smoother. Of course, the big fellow across from him was in an even worse state. Its originally mighty and majestic head was now bent backwards at an exaggerated angle. Its neck had been crushed, and its massive body crashed to the ground. What a waste! Just how many points would that have cost? A faint sigh sounded out from behind him. Qin Yu's lips twitched. His hands that were holding on to her tight legs moved, but in the end he didn't raise them. The female cultivator arched an eyebrow. What? Have you taken enough advantage of me? Qin Yu had a helpless expression. Big sister, aren't you afraid of dying? The female cultivator's face stiffened. What did you call me? Qin Yu bitterly smiled. He didn't plan on replying. He lifted her up and continued forwards. The female cultivator fell silent. She looked down at Qin Yu's blood-stained body, and a trace of gentleness appeared in her eyes. This fellow, although he was a bit lecherous and a bit of a bastard, he still had some conscience. He knew that I was afraid of pain, so he didn't add any wounds to my body. But even if I wasn't injured, I probably wouldn't be able to last much longer. Rather than struggling at death's door, I might as well use up some of my remaining energy. At least a few monster beasts would be buried with me. Humph, humph! I'm not being moved, nor am I risking my life to save this bastard's life. In a bit, charge forward. Don't worry about the demonic beasts. No matter how many come, they'll all be mine, said the female cultivator coolly. Her voice had finally changed and was no longer annoying. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. He turned his head, but before he could say anything, he was slapped on the head. Don't waste time. Hurry up and rush forward. Hiya! I'm riding a horse, big sister. Qin Yu's feet buckled, and he nearly fell to the ground. He took a deep breath, and his heart began to race. Bang! Mud splattered in all directions. Every time he stepped on the ground, deep footprints would be left behind, and cracks would spread in all directions. Qin Yu was like a boulder, bouncing on the ground as he raced forwards. Roar! The violent roars of monster beasts echoed in his ears. He could smell the stench from their bodies. Qin Yu lowered his head. He ignored everything around him, only running, running, running. Of course, this wasn't just because he trusted her words, but because he believed in his own eyes. A woman that could risk her life against two powerful monster beasts wasn't simple at all. Reality proved that Qin Yu's judgment was accurate. At this time, the woman behind him slightly straightened her back. Her soft chest stretched taut, revealing an enchanting curve. She looked down and revealed a helpless smile. He really was a lecherous man, but at this time it wasn't worth bickering with him. She looked up, and the faint helplessness in her eyes had completely vanished. All that was left was calm and tranquil. An aura called nobility began to flow out from her. It was like everything in her eyes was within her control. Prosperity and destruction existed in a single thought. She raised her hand and brushed it across her eyes. It was as if she was gently pulling back her hair, without the slightest hint of smoke or fire. In the air, a monster beast with short black fur suddenly froze in midair, like a frozen fish in water. In the next moment, this invisible freeze quietly disintegrated. Walala! Pieces of the corpse fell to the ground, but not a single drop of blood flowed out. The cut was as smooth as a mirror and as red as blood jade. It was as if this demonic beast, which had been extremely ferocious just a moment ago, was formed from some sort of crystal. Of course, it wasn't just this monster beast with exquisite fur that died. Crashing sounds echoed out as Chin-Yu ran forwards. It was like a hail of flesh and blood was raining down. Even the monster beasts that were driven here by the power of the curse felt fear at this time. The cruel killing intent in their eyes faded away and was replaced with awe, respect for strength. Awe for strength. In the world of monster beasts, this was even more naked. A fierce tiger monster that was about to turn and leave suddenly cried out miserably. Its 20-foot-long body was sent flying away. A wound on its chest opened up and blood flowed out from its organs. It fell to the ground, howling in pain. It didn't seem like it would survive. The tall demon ape paused. Its claws were stained with blood. It howled, and the surrounding monster beasts all revealed looks of fear. It rushed towards Chin-Yu once more. The female cultivator's eyes fell on the demon ape. There was no fear in her eyes, but rather a bit of interest and a bit of gratification. This sort of miraculous gaze caused a trace of coldness to arise in the heart of the devil ape that was renowned for its ruthlessness, bloodthirstiness, and peerlessly ferociousness. Then it really did feel a cold chill. The demon ape's body tensed. Unsurprisingly, in the next moment, its giant body erupted with a strength that could tear apart all. But at this time, the demon ape gently shivered, as if it were shivering in a cold wind. Then, its tensed body shattered into countless pieces. They were still like ice crystals, bright red, but there was no blood flowing out. The female cultivator coughed several times. Her originally pale face lost even more color. She was like ice and snow, but now there was a soul-stirring beauty and nobility about her. It was unknown what method she used to kill the terrifyingly strong demon ape, but she had clearly paid a great price. But at this time she actually smiled. On her pale face, this sudden smile was filled with a crazed demonic intent. Yet it was also particularly moving. Chin-Yu revealed a helpless expression, but even more dignified one. He had seen with his own eyes that the female cultivator had fought with two powerful monster beasts and had suffered heavy wounds. To reveal such a terrifying strength at this time, she must have paid an equivalent price. Hearing the laughter behind him, as clear and melodious as a mountain spring, Chin-Yu's heart became a bit heavier. But at this time he didn't turn around. Instead, he lowered his body even more and moved his legs, erupting with an even greater strength. This strength had already surpassed the limits of the demon body. His flesh, blood, muscles, and bones emitted faint cracking sounds, bringing with it a tearing pain. Chin-Yu remained silent, as if this pain wasn't occurring on his body at all. The female cultivator behind him arched an eyebrow. As she looked at Chin-Yu, her eyes became a bit more mellow. This fellow really did have a conscience. She was about to die and hadn't been taken advantage of by anyone before, so she might as well take advantage of him. This could be considered a rare act of kindness before she died. As she lay on Chin-Yu's back, her chest came into contact with his thick and broad back. The female cultivator furrowed her eyebrows and twisted around a few times, a bit uncomfortable. She thought that smelly men really weren't easy to use. How could he be as soft and fragrant as her lover? But this sort of rough taste in this current environment could at least calm her heart a bit. She let out a light breath and closed her eyes. Like this, she lay on Chin-Yu's back as if she had fallen asleep. But all of the monster beasts that were torn apart were a constant reminder of just what sort of terrifying strength this sleeping woman was releasing. Qin Yu forcefully stomped down. Along with the broken rocks, his calf bones also cracked open. But he didn't slow down at all. He smashed through the layers of vines, listening to the woman's weak and sloppy voice guide him forwards. She should be very tired. Her voice was weak and weak. Her mouth was very close to Qin Yu's ear, so close that he could clearly feel her warm breathing tickling his ear. Qin Yu pursed his lips. He tore open the vines in front of him once more. Finally, he heard the woman's voice confirm, "It's here." What the vines covered was a bottomless black hole. The sound of howling wind came from within. With a single glance, one could tell that this place was unfathomably deep. Qin Yu didn't hesitate at all. He leapt in. The sound of wind grew louder and louder, and then he reached the bottom. This was completely different from what he expected. Qin Yu wasn't prepared for this. His incomparably stable body began to stagger a little. The woman's arrogant, mocking laughter echoed in his ears. She really wasn't afraid of death. Even at this time, she still had the mind to play such petty tricks. In a corner of the cave, faint traces of light circulated. Although he couldn't see clearly because of the darkness, there was no way Qin Yu would mistake this aura for a transmission array. They really had arrived at the transmission array. The woman behind him stopped laughing. "Put me down. When we are transmitting, we cannot receive any outside interference." From the direction of the cave entrance, the roars of monster beasts could already be heard. It was clear that the pitch-black cave entrance wouldn't be able to scare them for too long. Qin Yu remained silent. The woman lightly said, "What is there to hesitate about? One person living is better than both of us dying. If you really feel guilty, you can come back here in the future to pay your respects. While you're at it, you can also kill a few hundred monster beasts. Consider it revenge for me." Qin Yu bitterly smiled. "I don't have that kind of strength." The woman was enraged. "Even if you don't, for better or worse, you should at least agree to it first, and let me feel happy. Aren't you afraid that I'll turn hostile and drag you down with me to die?" Qin Yu smiled. "I always thought that you weren't afraid of death. But now that I've heard you speak such nonsense, I've discovered that you are also afraid. Then don't die. Let's live on together." The woman sneered. "Don't speak as if you know so much. If I die, you won't be able to do anything about it." Qin Yu shook his head. That might not be true. With a flick of his sleeves, the sky thunder bamboo appeared in a flash of light. Its roots seemed to have a mind of their own as they drilled into the ground. Then, every branch and leaf erupted with dazzling lightning that gathered into a pool of thunder that sealed off the cave entrance. The roars of the monster beasts were immediately filled with anger and anger, mixed with several pained roars. It was clear that those closest to the cave entrance had already suffered the pain of thunder. Qin Yu turned his head, a smile on his face. "Now, let's live on together." The woman's pale face revealed a complex expression. She gently sighed. "Then let's live on for a bit longer." Several breaths of time later, the transmission array lit up. Space twisted, and the two figures vanished from sight. Chapter 288. The two sides of the transmission array were connected to each other. So if the array formation on the other side was destroyed, the array formation here wouldn't be able to survive either. Before the blazing light around Qin Yu had time to fade away, he heard a shattering sound in his ears. Then, a maid appeared in front of him. Her face was like a bun, and her eyes were red with joy. "Miss!" She rushed over, but before her hands touched him, she froze where she was. Her face flushed with excitement, but it instantly vanished. A warm liquid fell onto his neck, winding down. Qin Yu could feel its stickiness and the faint smell of blood. He looked up at the frozen maid and said, "Hurry and call for someone." Someone come." Qin Yu looked at the flustered maid who nearly tripped over the threshold and ran out the door. He coughed and said, "This maid of yours is quite loyal." The maid wiped her lips and humphed. If she's stupid, then she's stupid. There's no need for you to say anything. Chin Yu bitterly smiled. I really didn't mean that. Humph, do you think I'll believe you? The innocent will be innocent. A pervert like you, I'll spit on you. Big sister, please conduct yourself with dignity. There was the sound of rapid footsteps outside the door. With just a few words, so many people had arrived. It seemed that this woman's status wasn't ordinary. Walala, a group of beautiful women rushed in. A fragrant aroma immediately assailed his senses. The woman greedily sucked in several breaths and smiled. Everyone's here. What are you all standing around for? Hurry and carry Master Wei away. Before Chin Yu could respond, the woman behind him was snatched away by them. They rushed towards the door and vanished without a trace. From start to finish, no one noticed Chin Yu, nor did anyone say a single word to him. Their presence was as weak as air. Master Wei, a woman actually had such a domineering name. She was truly fierce. Chin Yu looked down at his tattered and blood-stained clothes. Then he bitterly smiled and walked away. After passing through a long corridor and passing through an elegant courtyard, the scene in front of him suddenly widened. Chin Yu could feel a familiar smell. He looked up at the beautiful red lanterns, as well as the pleasant fragrance that lingered in his nose and mouth. He finally realized where he was. At the inn. This was the place that Su Jiao had arranged for him to stay in, an alluring brothel of pleasure. If it weren't for his powerful soul and firm will, he would have nearly lost control of himself. Thus, he naturally had a deep impression of her. That woman actually lived here? Who is she? Chin Yu wasn't stupid enough to think that someone as strong as her would use her looks to serve others. Of course, even if she was willing to do it, no one would dare to interfere with her business. Today, the inn was frighteningly deserted. Looking around, there wasn't a single person to be seen. If it weren't for the TV series being played on a nearby screen, Chin Yu would have thought that some accident had occurred in the beast hunting battalion. After a while, no one came out. Chin Yu thought for a moment and decided to bid his farewells. However, how was the woman's injury? I hope she's going to be okay. Shaking his head, Chin Yu followed his memories and walked out. But he had clearly underestimated the size of the inn and the complexity of its interior. Injured, his head was a little dizzy, and he actually lost his way. After walking for a while, he still couldn't find his way out. He raised his head and looked in all directions, feeling that everything was the same. As he was laughing at himself, he heard the sound of sobbing. Moreover, this voice belonged to a woman. Chin Yu thought for a moment. Although he felt that it was a bit rude to approach her at this time, it was still better than continuing to wander around like a headless fly. He took several steps forwards and arrived outside the rockery. He coughed and the sobbing stopped. Several breaths of time later, a steamed bun with red and swollen eyes cautiously peeked out. Oh, it was actually someone he knew. The steamed bun-faced maid's eyes widened. Why are you here? Chin Yu rubbed his nose. He decided not to say that he was lost. That would be too shameful. Oh, I was just casually strolling around. I'm a bit tired now, so I was about to bid my farewells. The steamed bun-faced maid was crying her heart out. Her little head was a mess, but she also felt that these words were a bit strange, especially when Chin Yu's body was covered in blood. But she didn't say anything. She stood up and bowed, displaying her good upbringing. I respectfully bid you farewell. Chin Yu was stunned. This was it. Weren't you supposed to be seeing me off? Little girl, you have such poor eyesight. Just how did you become a maid? As he was feeling a headache coming on, a gorgeously dressed woman ran over. Psong psong, the miss wants to see that man. Has he left yet? As she turned around the rockery, her eyes met Chin Yu's. She was stunned for a moment and then overjoyed. She grabbed onto his arm and said, "Let's go, the miss wants to see you." Chin Yu didn't stop her. If that woman wanted to see him, there should be a reason. The steamed bun, faced, maid followed behind. She staggered along the way, and her wounds were starting to hurt again. She must have torn open quite a bit. Qin Yu forced a smile, but didn't say anything. This was because it seemed that this matter was urgent. Outside the room, there were many women standing, each one incomparably beautiful. Their red eyes seemed even more charming and charming, making it hard for one to bear looking at them. Madame Mulberry had seen Qin Yu before. She paused for a moment, clearly recognizing him, but she wasn't in the mood to say anything. She nodded and said, "Please go in. Master Wei's body is weak, so don't let her speak too much." Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows. He nodded and pushed open the door. The room was filled with the rich smell of herbs. The woman had changed into white clothes and was lying comfortably on a warm bed. She didn't even open her eyes when she heard the door open. She lazily said, "For better or for worse, we've gone through trials and tribulations together. I haven't asked for your name yet." "Qin Yu." "So no imposing aura at all." The woman curled her lips. "You can call me Master Wei." Qin Yu was silent for a moment. "Your wounds," the woman lightly said. "I can live a little longer." She revealed a smug smile. "I already said that if I die, you won't be able to do anything about it." As if she had really won something. Qin Yu frowned, not speaking. The woman curled her lips. "The one who is going to die is me, so I should be the one sad. Don't ruin my final good mood. The reason I called you here is to tell you what happened after I die. Don't hide anything and you won't be implicated." She finally opened her eyes. She lazily looked at Qin Yu for several breaths of time and waved her hand. Go. I want to rest." Qin Yu smiled. "All right, I'll come see you later." He turned and left. The woman was stunned for a moment. Then she quietly sighed and closed her eyes. Madame Mulberry lightly said, "We are all women, so we won't keep any guests here. Psong, see them off." Qin Yu waved his hand. "Does she still have a chance?" Madame Mulberry frowned. "We will naturally deal with Master Wei's injuries. There is no need for guests to worry about him." The young maid who had just walked out curled her lips. She forcefully suppressed her sobs as tears flowed down her cheeks. Qin Yu thought for a moment and said, "I haven't known Master Wei for long, but we can be considered to have gone through life and death situations together. If there is anything you need, I might be able to help." Madame Mulberry's complexion relaxed a little, but she still didn't say anything. She shook her head and was about to decline when the young maid suddenly said, "Madam, perhaps he has a way. I don't want the miss to die, I don't want to." The young maid's eyes turned red and she immediately began to cry, sobbing and sobbing. It was a pitiful sight. Madame Mulberry wanted to scold her, but when she opened her mouth, she couldn't say anything. The young maid bowed. "Guest, my family's miss has suffered a bloodline backlash, and she cannot move at all. But there is no way in the camp to save her. If this continues, the miss, she won't be able to last past today." Qin Yu's complexion darkened. This woman, as he thought about the tyrannical and unparalleled strength she revealed in the wilderness, he couldn't help but sigh. Now, no matter how he looked at it, he still owed her a life. His thoughts raced. Qin Yu asked, "Is there a solution?" Madame Mulberry said in a low voice, "The miss's injuries can only be alleviated if she returns home. The key problem now is that her body can no longer withstand even a single transmission. The only way is to temporarily stabilize her injuries. Unfortunately, there is no way to accomplish this in the camp. Those alchemists in the camp that are always bragging about are all trash. They can't even refine the 9 Mystic Heavens pill. Big sister, that is the 9 Mystic Heavens pill, a top spirit pill. Not even an ordinary alchemy grandmaster can refine it. I don't care. In short, they are all trash. Those people outside are also trash. They have worked for so many years, and yet they can't even find a single 9 Mystic Heavens pill." Madame Mulberry's complexion darkened. "Enough, shut up." Her eyes swept over the last woman who spoke. She revealed a look of fear and quickly lowered her head. She knew, with Master Wei's current situation, only the 9 Mystic Heavens pill can save him. If you don't have a way, then leave as soon as possible. The meaning behind her words was clear. Leave as soon as possible and don't get in the way. Qin Yu had a thoughtful look. 9 Mystic Heavens pill. Madame Mulberry's expression froze. Do you have one? Or do you know where? The bun-faced maid and the surrounding girls all looked over at him. Qin Yu shook his head. That's not it. These words were infuriating. Why did you make such an expression? It was really annoying. Madame Mulberry took a deep breath. Song Tsong, send our guest off. Qin Yu lifted a hand. Wait a moment. Although I don't have a 9 Mystic Heavens pill, and I don't know where I can find one, if you have the materials, perhaps I can try refining one. The bun-faced maid's eyes widened. She had an expression that said, What did you say? Did I hear wrong? 9 Mystic Heavens pill. That was the 9 Mystic Heavens pill. Although she had a low status, she had followed at the side of the miss since she was a child. She had been influenced by what she had seen and heard, so her horizons weren't low. She also had some understanding of the 9 Mystic Heavens pill. This was a top spirit pill of the 3 upper grades. No matter how serious one's injuries were, after swallowing it, one would be able to remain unharmed for 7 days. Qin Yu had said that ordinary alchemy grandmasters didn't have the confidence to refine one. In truth, these words weren't correct. To be more precise, an alchemy grandmaster had less than a 10% chance of successfully refining a pill. Only those extremely strong alchemy grandmaster amongst grandmasters would have a 30 to 50% chance of successfully refining a pill. Now, Qin Yu actually said that he could try refining one. This joke wasn't going too far. Madame Mulberry's complexion darkened. Qin Yu, I have treated you as Master Wei's guest, so I have tolerated you. You can leave now. Qin Yu's finger cut through space. A flame flashed, brilliant and dazzling. I am an alchemist, and I am not joking about this. If you are willing, I will give it a try. Otherwise, I will have done my best. Even if this woman dies, I won't feel like I owe her anything. There was a heavy silence. Madame Mulberry had a dignified expression. That void fire just now was an essential alchemy skill, but when Qin Yu used it, it seemed as smooth as flowing water. Just this point alone was enough to determine that he was an alchemist. Did he really have the confidence to refine the 9 Mystic Heavens pill? Although reason told her that this was impossible, Master Wei's life hung on the line. Even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance, she still couldn't miss it. Madame Mulberry clenched her teeth. We only have 3 sets of materials for the 9 Mystic Heavens pill. Qin Yu thought for a moment and nodded. That should be enough. Madame Mulberry relaxed. Qin Yu's calm demeanor gave her a bit more confidence. But his next words nearly caused her to turn hostile. I will have to trouble you to give me the pill recipe and refining method for the 9 Mystic Heavens pill. What did he mean? What did he mean? He didn't even know the pill recipe, and yet he dared to say that he could refine the 9 Mystic Heavens pill? Chapter 289. The inn's speed was much faster than Qin Yu expected. The pill formula and 3 sets of materials sealed in metal boxes were delivered to him within an hour. After carefully reading through the pill recipe and looking over the refining steps and techniques, Qin Yu finally gained some understanding of the 9 Mystic Heavens pill. It was no wonder that the group of women had looked at him with shock and doubt when he said he was going to forge the pill, silently calculating. Even if he used his full strength, the probability of success was only 1 in 10, perhaps even lower. If one added in the steps of adapting to the alchemy, all 3 sets of materials would turn to waste. It would be impossible to see even the shadow of the 9 Mystic Heavens pill. Luckily, when it came to alchemy, he had never relied on himself. If the little blue lamp was counted in, then there should be a chance. He opened the first metal box. This box was the same as the one he used to exchange for the primary pill collection. From this, It could be seen how precious the materials within were. Of course, with the preciousness of the 9 mystic heavens pill, even an idiot would know that the materials required to refine it were definitely extremely valuable. There were 7 main materials, 13 supplementary materials, and 18 types of fire, transfer, and pill condensation. There were a total of 38 materials. After opening the box, a rich spiritual aura assailed his nostrils. Just one breath of it made him feel refreshed. After carefully looking over everything and making sure that all the materials were intact, Chinyu took a deep breath. He turned and said, "I will begin refining the pill now. During this time, no matter what happens, do not disturb me." The bun-faced maid watched as Chinyu closed the door behind him. Her pale face was filled with sorrow and tears nearly flowed down her cheeks. A person who didn't even know the pill formula started to refine pills after reading it a few times. How could there be such a thing in this world? You should at least try to figure it out a little more and give me some confidence. Originally, the little maid had been hiding a final bit of hope in her heart. But now she had completely given up. He turned to look at the backyard of the inn. His mother and the others had already thought of a way to save the young miss. He wondered how she was doing now. At this time, she wasn't in front of the miss and instead ran over to watch Chinyu refine pills. She was really stupid. In the chamber, Chinyu swept out with his divine sense. He didn't sense anything wrong. He flicked his sleeves and took out the fleeting flame furnace. This pill furnace came from Tsangmangzi. Even now, Chinyu still hadn't been able to completely see through it. It was of an extraordinary grade. In addition, it had followed Chinyu for a long time and he had used it the most. Now it was the best choice to refine the 9 mystic heavens pill. Even with the little blue lamp in hand, Chinyu didn't dare to be careless. This was his first time refining a pill of this level, so he had to fully utilize his own advantages. His fingers streaked across the air and a flame appeared out of thin air, falling into the cauldron and activating the formation within the cauldron. The cauldron absorbed the spiritual energy of the world and turned it into a blazing flame. Chinyu opened the metal box and took out the first material. With a shake of his hand, he sent it into the fleeting flame furnace. If other alchemists were to learn that Chinyu had started refining the pill recipe as soon as he obtained it, they would surely stomp their feet in anger. It was just like how the bun-faced maid had despaired before. Only if one's Tao of alchemy far surpassed the level of the pill they were refining could they rely on their superb skills and experience to directly start refining. If it was a pill that corresponded to one's own grade or even exceeded the grade of the pill, even if the success rate was disregarded, one would have to carefully consider it, analyze it again and again, and even simulate the refinement process before one dared to start. Furthermore, it was a precious item like the 9 heavens profound pill. It wasn't that Chinyu didn't know all of this. The key problem was that what he lacked the most right now was time. That woman had suffered a backlash and might not be able to last past today. Thus, even if he knew that there was almost no chance of success if he hastily refined the pill, Chinyu still had to start. This was because only by truly refining the pill could he familiarize himself with the process in the shortest possible time. Chinyu was expressionless. His heart was calm without any waves. He formed law formulas with his hands, controlling the changes in the flames and pouring in the heaven and earth spiritual energy. Soon, the first main material completely dissolved. Chinyu flicked his sleeves and threw in the second material. This was a supplementary spirit plant. The refining process was simple. All he needed to do was fuse it with the first main material. The refinement proceeded smoothly. Through his divine sense, Chinyu could clearly sense that the 2 materials had already begun to fuse together. He lifted a hand and grabbed the third pill. Once the fusion was complete, he would throw it into the fleeting flame furnace. But at this time there was a dull, thumping sound. Chinyu's fingers stiffened and his complexion paled. He withdrew his law formulas and extinguished the flames in the pill furnace. He opened the lid and faint traces of black Smoke gushed out, accompanied by a burnt smell. The refinement had failed. This wasn't the time to condense the pill, nor was it the time to gather the materials. In fact, he hadn't even finished refining the materials. He had failed with the second material, although he knew that refining the 9 Mystic Heavens pill wouldn't be easy. This failure was still outside of Qin Yu's expectations. In particular, when he thought there was no problem at all and everything was within his control, this failure was especially heavy. He frowned and thought for a long time. Then he took out a pile of black waste and carefully poured it to the side. To other cultivators, materials that failed in the refinement were completely useless. But with the little blue lamp in hand, Qin Yu still had a chance to reuse them. He continued to refine. He took out the second material and soon arrived at the same second step as before. Qin Yu's divine sense completely erupted as he sensed the slightest reaction within the alchemy furnace. As he thought, as the materials began to fuse together, a faint and extremely weak rejection reaction appeared. But this wasn't because the medicinal properties didn't match, but because they were fusing too quickly. The first 2 materials of the 9 Mystic Heavens pill were the main and auxiliary materials. They formed the foundation of the pill. Thus, the medicinal properties of the 2 spirit plants completely attracted each other and complemented each other. Once they met, they would fuse together in the shortest possible time. But this sort of rapid fusion would cause the medicinal properties of the 2 spirit plants to be unable to completely fuse together. Instead, there would be a gap between them that would repel each other, ultimately leading to failure. Qin Yu realized this. He rapidly formed law formulas with his hands, slowing down the influx of heaven and earth, spiritual strength, and interfering with the fusing speed of the 2 materials. In a situation where the fusion was slowed by half, they finally fused together perfectly. As he thought, there was a reason why the 9 Mystic Heavens pill was so difficult to refine. Just the fusion of the second material had an extremely high requirement on the alchemist's divine sense. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to sense the reason and would only continue to fail. There was no time to be happy. The third material was about to be added, and there were still 35 more to come. Qin Yu's expression became increasingly dignified. There were only 3 materials, and he only had a day's time. As for whether or not he could complete the refinement, the last bit of confidence he had in his heart had faded by a great deal. The bun-faced maid propped up her chin with her hands, staring at the closed door in a daze. Qin Yu had already been inside for over 6 hours. She had no idea what the current situation was. Perhaps the fact that he hadn't come out yet was the best result. The skies gradually darkened. Today's night was incomparably deep and gloomy, as if countless drops of ink had condensed together. Just looking at it made one feel an inexplicable chill in their hearts. The bun-faced maid shivered. She quickly lowered her head. She felt that this night was too ominous, and she absolutely didn't want to look at it again. The miss would be fine. She would definitely be fine. She silently prayed in her heart, over and over again. Her thoughts were a bit hazy. After a moment, she heard the cry of a bird in her ears. It was Big Sister Bitterflower's thrush. This little bird had recently gone into heat. Every morning before the sun rose, it would let out a loud cry that annoyed her to death. When she woke up, she had to have the miss speak to Big Sister Bitterflower and have her tie up this bird's beak. Miss, the bun-faced maid shivered. She sat up straight and looked up in panic. She could see that the sky was beginning to brighten. She forcefully pinched her chubby cheeks and felt a burst of pain. This wasn't a dream. It really was daybreak. The bun-faced maid curled her lips and nearly cried. She had fallen asleep. She had actually fallen asleep. At this time, the miss was unconscious and on the verge of death. She wished that she could kill herself. She quickly stood up and walked to the door. The aura of a spell spread out from within. It was clear that Qin Yu hadn't come out yet. The bun-faced maid relaxed a little. Then she began to panic. Why hadn't he come out yet? At this time, the sound of crying echoed out from the inn's rear courtyard. Because it was far away, she couldn't hear it clearly. The bun-faced maid's face instantly paled. "Miss!" Schwa! Tears instantly streamed down her face. She turned and ran away. As for Chinyu, she shouldn't have believed him to begin with. She had wasted her last night to accompany the miss. "Miss, hold on a little longer. Wait for me to come over. No, 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 miss, don't die." All sorts of thoughts raced through her mind. The young maid's crying became even more turbulent. She arrived at the miss courtyard. As she thought, the crying came from within. The young maid's legs weakened, and she nearly fell to the ground. "Miss!" With a sorrowful cry, she rushed into the room. As she saw the ruddy and smiling miss lying on the bed, she couldn't help but be stunned for a moment before being overjoyed. "Miss, you're fine. That's great, that's great." She turned and bowed again and again. "Thank you, Mother. Thank you, big sisters, for saving my family's miss." Madame Mulberry and the group of mournful women around her stiffened, a look of unwillingness in their eyes. The woman laughed and scolded. "What poor eyesight! If it weren't for you serving me since you were a child, I would have already replaced you." She waved her hand and pulled the dazed young maid to her side. She turned and said, "Auntie Hong, I'll have to ask you to take care of little Tsong from now on. She is stupid, lazy, and gluttonous. In the future, you have to find someone with a good temper and a good family background for her. Otherwise, I fear she will starve to death." Madame Mulberry's eyes reddened. She squeezed out a smile. "Master Wei, rest assured that Tsong will be my daughter in the future. Master Wei, we will also take care of Tsong. Don't worry. Master Wei, I can't bear to part with you." The redness on the young maid's face faded away. Her pale eyes widened. Little miss," the woman rewarded her with a sugar-roasted chestnut. She laughed and scolded, "Little your ass. Your chest is already so big, and you call it little? Are you mocking me?" A trace of sadness flashed in her eyes. She pursed her lips and said, "From now on, listen to Auntie Hong. Don't run around by yourself, do you hear me?" Chapter 290. With a light, creaking sound, the door opened from the inside. Chin Yu's face was tired and his eyes were bloodshot. The bun-faced maid was no longer there. He could faintly hear sobbing in his ears. Chin Yu took a deep breath. "Don't die!" Bang! The ground shook. Chin Yu shot up into the skies like a cannonball, heading straight for the source of the sobbing. In the courtyard, a group of women stared with wide eyes at the multicolored lights that surged in the air. The spells of the inn had been completely triggered. Just who was it that couldn't think straight? Did they want to be buried with Master Wei? Looking at the situation, they really were heading straight for this place. The door suddenly opened. Auntie Hong's face darkened. "Who dares to break into my inn's backyard? How insolent!" Her voice billowed like an invisible tide. This beautiful mulberry actually had such a powerful cultivation. In the skies above the courtyard, the multicolored spells shattered. Chin Yu fell to the ground, stumbling and spitting out a mouthful of blood. Auntie Hong had already learned from Tsong that it was hopeless to refine pills, so she no longer cared about Chin Yu. Her previous patience became even uglier. She coldly said, "Chin Yu, I will consider you as Master Wei's graciousness, so I won't bother with you for breaking into my inn's backyard. Leave immediately." Chin Yu wiped the corners of his mouth and nodded. "I do need to rest. I'll give this pill to that woman. I hope I can make it in time." He opened his hand, revealing a pill in his palm. Beneath the pale morning light, it shimmered with a brilliant light. Auntie Hong lost her voice. 9 Mystic Heavens pill. Her eyes widened, her face filled with shock. Chin Yu coughed. "Hurry up, otherwise that woman really will die." "Pooey, even if you die, I won't die." A hand reached out and grabbed the pill. She swallowed it, frowned for a moment, and then curled her lips beneath everyone's nervous eyes. "It's just eso. The medicinal effects aren't as good as the ones I ate before. Not as good as the ones before? In other words, this 9 Mystic Heavens pill was really effective? Auntie Hong's eyes widened, joy written all over her face. As for the bun-faced woman, her eyes rolled back in her head. Before she could catch her breath, she slumped to the ground. Qin Yu sneered. If you think it's not good, then spit it out. I don't want to give it to you. The woman looked him up and down. You didn't want to give me anything to eat, and yet you ran away so quickly. Luckily, Auntie Hong didn't manage the spell today. Otherwise, you would have already died. Her face was filled with ridicule and pride. But after a moment, she revealed a look of vigilance. Qin Yu, don't have any improper thoughts towards me. It's impossible for us to be together. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves and left. You think too much. The woman stomped her feet and cursed. In the end, Qin Yu wasn't able to directly leave. His current condition was far worse than when he first arrived. He could only see 2 shadows in front of him. The only reason he hadn't fainted was because he was stubbornly holding on. But stubbornly holding on could only last for a while, so when he turned the corner and saw a patch of soft grass, he sat down comfortably and sighed. He lay down on his back, and when his head touched the grass, he fell asleep. A moment later, Auntie Hong sent the miss away. As she turned, she saw the snoring Qin Yu. She was startled for a moment before her eyes softened. She waved her hand and said, Carry Mr. Qin back to his room to rest. A group of women hurriedly lifted Qin Yu up. Their fingers inadvertently traced his body and their eyes brightened. They couldn't tell that this boy was so thin, but his body was actually quite meaty. Auntie Hong walked in front. She coughed and said, All right, pay attention to your table manners. When Mr. Qin wakes up, if he is willing, there will be a chance for you to serve him in bed. When Qin Yu woke up, he was lying down on a warm and soft bed. A light fragrance lingered around his breath. This smell was a bit strange, but it was truly pleasant. He couldn't help but take several deep breaths before opening his eyes. At this time, the door was pushed open. A bun-faced maid carrying a basin of water walked in with a look of pleasant surprise. Mr. Qin, you've woken up. Qin Yu smiled. Where is your miss? The maid put down the basin and knelt on the ground. Reporting to Mr. The miss has already returned home to recuperate. She paused for a moment and then earnestly said, This servant Song Song wishes to thank Mr. Qin for saving her life on behalf of my miss. In the future, if you have any orders, this servant will obey them. A charming laughter came from outside the door. Song Song, you little hussy. This big sister knows that you can't be relied on. We haven't even started yet, and you've already started. A woman with an enchanting figure and charming eyebrows stepped in. Her eyes were like soft water, charming and charming. The maid flushed red. Big Sister Peony, don't speak nonsense. I didn't. You still say you didn't? You'll agree to any order. Isn't this hint obvious enough? Peony continued to tease her, but as she saw the maid's face turn even redder, as if she were about to cry, she no longer teased her. She turned and bowed. Peony greets Mr. Qin. Qin Yu bowed in return. Miss Peony, how are you? Is this the inn? Peony smiled and nodded. In order to save Master Wei, Mr. Qin has spent too much energy and has already slept for 3 days and 3 nights. If he hadn't woken up, Auntie Hong would have called for a doctor. Qin Yu shook his head. I'm fine now. He turned around and left the bed. I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll bid my farewells here. Peony hurriedly said, Mr. Qin, please wait a moment. Qin Yu frowned. Peony respectfully said, Auntie Hong has ordered that after Mr. Qin wakes up, she must personally thank you. Moreover, there are some matters that she hopes to discuss with Mr. Qin. Auntie Hong said that this would also be beneficial to Mr. Qin. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. Then let me wash up first. Peony covered her mouth and smiled. Song Song, Why aren't you helping Mr. Chin clean up? She bowed. I will wait outside for Mr. Chin. Song Song lowered her head, nearly turning into an ostrich. But this appearance only made her chest seem even more astonishing. Chin Yu coughed several times and turned his head, allowing her to help him tidy up. He pushed open the door and left. Peony bowed and led the way. They soon arrived at a quiet courtyard where Auntie Hong was already waiting outside. I greet Mr. Chin. Chin Yu cupped his hands together. Auntie Hong is too polite. Mr. Chin, please. When they entered the courtyard, Peony poured some tea and left. There were only the two of them in the hall. Auntie Hong smiled. Mr. Chin is quick-witted, so I won't beat around the bush. I'll get straight to the point. Chin Yu nodded. Auntie Hong, please speak. Auntie Hong had a serious expression. The in hopes that we can cooperate with Mr. Chin. We will provide the materials and you will refine the pills. Of course. Since Mr. Chin saved Master Wei, you are an honored guest of my inn. I will certainly give you an extremely generous reward. This time, it really surpassed Chin Yu's expectations. He thought that the reason Auntie Hong ordered people to keep him here was because she hoped that he would refine some more pills. After all, the success of the 9 Mystic Heavens pill was enough to demonstrate Chin Yu's formidable alchemy strength. But now it seemed that his thoughts had been too simple. As for this Auntie Hong in front of him, as well as the inn he was in, they weren't simple at all. In truth, Auntie Hong's proposal was incomparably in line with Chin Yu's current needs. But he wasn't in a hurry to agree. He thought for a moment and said, Auntie Hong's words leave me a bit confused. Auntie Hong was an astute person. From these words, she could tell that Chin Yu had no intention of refusing. Her smile immediately brightened. It was my mistake. I didn't clearly explain things to Mr. Chin. Our inn is a place of pleasure, but the truth is that we do all sorts of alchemy materials. Within the entire beast hunting battalion, we are responsible for purchasing most of the materials that the beast hunters have. Everything else wasn't important. With just these words, it was clear just how strong the inn was. What sort of place was the beast hunting battalion? It was a group of people that spent their days hunting monster beasts and living a life of licking blood off the edge of a blade. Did they really expect to be approachable? To be able to purchase a massive amount of materials here and also do business that didn't require any capital. One didn't need to be an idiot to know just how fierce the inn was. Chin Yu didn't consider it for too long before nodding. The inn's request was simply too good. He had no leeway to refuse. As long as he could begin to refine pills in bulk, then with the little blue lamp's assistance, Chin Yu's cultivation would rise once more. Auntie Hong was all smiles. Then I'll have to trouble Mr. Chin from now on. The inn's agreement with Chin Yu was that the overall pill success rate was 40%. Although this wasn't a low requirement, with Mr. Chin's alchemy strength that surpassed a grandmaster, he would still be able to earn a considerable amount of profit. After all, the amount of materials that the inn received was astonishing. Unfortunately, what Auntie Hong didn't know was that Chin Yu had the little blue lamp in his hands. Waste materials could be reused, and the actual success rate of pills would far surpass her imagination. But on the other hand, what Auntie Hong asked for wasn't for Chin Yu to help her refine more pills. After all, the inn was a chain of businesses. Over the years, there had been a considerable number of alchemy masters recruited. What she truly valued was Chin Yu's alchemy strength. As long as the two of them cooperated happily, it wasn't impossible to ask him to refine some extremely difficult pills in the future. Moreover, with an extreme alchemy master joining them, the hidden benefits that the inn could gather from all aspects would be incomparably astonishing. Of course, from Auntie Hong's point of view, the inn would provide additional compensation. They couldn't let Mr. Chin work for nothing. For instance, with Mr. Chin's status, he would naturally provide some benefits to the inn. For instance, at this time, as Chin Yu was bathing, the door was pushed open. 2 young women, covered in light gauze, walked in with blushing faces. Their exquisite bodies and their hidden places were faintly discernible beneath the gauze. The temptation was so great that it broke through the heavens. "We will help Mr. Bathe." As he was stunned, the two women bowed and walked towards the bathtub. Qin Yu was startled. He quickly waved his hand. "No need, no need. I'm fine by myself." The two women stopped. They had bitter expressions. "Mr. doesn't like us sisters." As they approached, it was only upon closer inspection that he discovered that the two of them looked exactly the same. It was just that the one on the left had a slightly larger chest. As for why he could see, what nonsense. With such a thin layer of gauze, it was as if they weren't wearing any clothes. Only a blind person wouldn't be able to see them. Qin Yu turned around. "It's not that you two aren't good, but that my body is currently injured. If there isn't anything else, please return." The two women glanced at each other and said, "We sisters will be waiting outside. If Mr. needs us, please call us at any time." These words were clearly giving him a chance to change his mind. If he was too embarrassed to refuse, he could still call them back. These words were like a kitten's paw gently scratching at his heart, making him feel an unbearable itch. Hearing the door close, Qin Yu let out a long breath. He bitterly smiled. He didn't need to think to know that this was definitely Auntie Hong's methods. She had even used a honey trap, and it was the legendary twin, swallows, cough cough. But thinking about it, this also showed how much she valued their cooperation. This was good, this was good. As long as everyone sincerely cooperated, they would each take what they needed. When he obtained the cultivation pills, he wouldn't let the inn suffer a loss. He tried to think about these serious matters so that his mind could forget about the unserious matters. But there were always two gauze swaying in his mind, making it impossible for him to fully concentrate. After a long time, Qin Yu sighed. He stepped out of the bathtub and turned on the cold water valve in an exquisite and luxurious hall. A white-dressed woman leaned against a window. Sunlight sprinkled down on her body, and a light breeze lifted the hem of her skirt. It seemed as if she would float away in the next moment. However, a hateful gauze covered most of her face. One could only imagine how beautiful she was. A maid lowered her head and quietly walked in. "Miss, there is a message jade slip from the Southern Overwatch Pass." Chapter 291. Li Xiang pushed open the door and walked out. He stretched his waist, clearly feeling refreshed. He couldn't help but reveal a look of praise. Everyone knew that the inn's expenses were high. Spending a single time here was enough to change locations for 3 days. Expensive things had their own benefits. For instance, the women's martial arts. The inn's women were all skilled in bedroom techniques and dual cultivation. Not only did this not harm the guests' vitality, but it was also beneficial to their cultivation. Secondly, there was safety. There was no problem with the women being clean. They were all prominent figures, so no one wanted to have something dirty growing down there. Of course, this was only one aspect of safety. More importantly, no matter where they were, the inn had never been investigated. This could be said to be amazing. Li Xiang sighed inwardly. He met an old flame and greeted her. As she coquettishly pouted, he pinched her amazingly elastic bottom. He laughed twice and prepared to leave, but after thinking for a moment, he turned back. In 2 days, he was going to go out. It wasn't anything major, but it was still a bit dangerous. So, before he left, he wanted to see if he could break through his current cultivation bottleneck. The female cultivator behind the counter smiled sweetly. "May I ask what guest needs?" Li Xiang was tempted, but he didn't dare to reveal it. There were countless women in the inn, but some of them couldn't be touched. Whoever touched them would suffer misfortune. He coughed and said, "I would like to purchase 20 overwhelming pills. Please wait a moment." The female cultivator lowered her head and tapped the screen. Soon, a jade pillar rose up from the ground beside her. The top was transparent and could be opened. There was a small jade bottle placed inside. The female cultivator opened the jade pillar and took out a pill. "Guest, please take a look." Li Xiang smiled and shook his head. "There's no need. I trust the inn's reputation." He took out a spirit stone card and paid. His hand phone immediately received a text notification. Looking at his balance, he shivered. But in front of this beautiful woman, he simply smiled and turned to leave. Everything was expensive in the inn, and pills were the same. Compared to similar items on the market, the average price was 20% higher. But the reasoning was the same. The inn's pills were expensive, but the medicinal efficacy was guaranteed. Moreover, there wouldn't be a situation where the pills were inferior or flawed. Li Xiang hurried back to his residence. His complexion was solemn. He thought that he had to handle everything properly this time, otherwise he would soon go bankrupt. Calming himself down, Li Xiang took out an overwhelming pill, opened its individually sealed packaging, and swallowed it. He had already eaten quite a number of these kinds of magic power-enhancing medicinal pills, so he was quite experienced, so he quickly noticed the difference. The medicinal energy that had melted was clearly much stronger. Furthermore, it was extremely lively, quickly flowing through his body, generating waves of warmth. It was like soaking in a hot spring. Half an hour later, Li Xiang suddenly opened his eyes. His joy was mixed with bewilderment. The medicinal efficacy of the inn's pills was publicly acknowledged. But this overwhelming pill, the medicinal efficacy, was a bit too good. It was a bit exaggerated to say that one pill was equal to 2, but 1.5 pills was no problem at all. Without any time to think, Li Xiang took out a second overwhelming pill and swallowed it. This time, the refinement took a longer time. 2 hours later, he opened his eyes, his expression uncertain. An overwhelming pill would normally take 2 hours to completely refine. Furthermore, its medicinal effects were on par with the medicinal pills he had bought from the inn. Then what was with the first overwhelming pill? Li Xiang furrowed his eyebrows. Then his eyes brightened. He found the packaging of the 2 overwhelming pills that had been tossed to the side. As he thought the production time was different from the batch, his eyes brightened. Could it be that they had a batch of overwhelming pills that had particularly good effects? If this was true, then this was a tremendous advantage. He hurriedly poured out the remaining 18 overwhelming pills. Li Xiang's luck wasn't bad. There were actually 2 more inside, the same batch as the first one. 2 hours later, Li Xiang revealed a look of ecstasy. It was true, it was actually true. This batch of overwhelming pills had medicinal efficacy that was several times higher than normal, nearly reaching medium grade. To buy medium grade pills at 20% the price of low grade pills, the difference in profits was astonishing. Without hesitation, Li Xiang took out his handphone and dialed the inn's customer service number. A beautiful melody sounded out. It was the theme song of a recently popular TV series. The singer was Li Xiang's favorite type, but he wasn't in the mood to listen to it. He only felt that every breath of time he waited was incomparably slow. But today, for some reason, the customer service number of the inn, which was usually picked up after a single call, actually waited for a full minute. When the slightly hurried and beautiful voice of a woman rang out on the other end, Li Xiang directly interrupted. "I want to order a batch of overwhelming pills. They unpackaged them 3 days ago, batch 2764. The woman paused and revealed an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry, guest. The batch of pills you purchased has been completely sold." Li Xiang panicked. "That's impossible. I just bought them a few hours ago. Moreover, you didn't even check, so how do you know they're gone?" The female voice said respectfully, "Hello, customer. Before you placed your order, many people have already called to inquire about it. I have already checked, clearly. The 2764th batch of overwhelming pills has indeed been completely sold. Is there anything else I can help you with?" Li Xiang hung up the phone, a bitter smile on his face. If he could discover something, then others would naturally be able to as well. What a waste of a good opportunity. As Li Xiang sighed, the matter regarding the inn's overwhelming pills had already caused a stir in a large number of people. It's almost comparable to a medium-grade, overwhelming pill. This is strange. Everyone knows that the inn doesn't do in profitable business. This matter is indeed strange. But just these pills alone can't prove anything. Let's wait and see. The cultivators that were paying attention to this matter didn't have to wait for long. The second wave soon arrived. Hurry and go to the inn to buy batch 2764 of Essence Chun pills. The price of a low-grade pill and the medicinal efficacy of a medium-grade pill. Heavens, it's actually true. I want to buy 1,000. The inn's customer service number ushered in another wave of calls. All of the 2,764 batches of pills were sold out in the shortest possible time. At this time, many people's hearts began to race. Then the third batch of 2,764 batches of pills. Blood spirit pills. Although the types were different, the medicinal efficacy and quality were still enough to drive people crazy. 2764 had nearly become synonymous with the inn during this period of time. In everyone's hearts, they began to faintly speculate about the inn's actions. It seemed that the inn had recently recruited a powerful alchemist. The high-quality pills that they were selling were all to build up momentum. Once they attracted enough attention, they would officially introduce this alchemist. Reality proved that there were many smart people. All of the inn's chain stores made announcements at the same time today. All of the 2,764 batches of pills sold recently have been refined by a new alchemy, Grandmaster of the inn. Moreover, we guarantee that the materials used are all ordinary grade and there are no other methods used to enhance them. We are only selling them at a fair price to thank our customers for their support towards the inn. From today onwards, there was a vast array of beautiful flowers. To sum it up in a few words, our inn has a very fierce alchemist. From today onwards, we will start accepting work. In a brightly lit meeting room, someone slammed the table. The inn's tricks are becoming more and more plentiful. If this continues, then all of our business will be stolen away by them. People of the same trade were enemies, especially in the alchemy business. This type of profiteering business made their eyes red with jealousy. Philosophy Watch was one of them. For the last 10 years, our net profit has been decreasing every year. The sect is already dissatisfied with us. It's all this damned inn's fault. 30% of our profits have been stolen away by them. We can't continue like this. Otherwise, if we are slowly nibbled away, all that awaits us is death. In the meeting room, everyone clenched their jaws. They wished that they could directly attack and raze the inn to the ground, but they had already tried this before. They weren't able to obtain any advantages and instead suffered some losses. In the seat of honor, a purple-robed old man lightly said, "The inn's arrogance is indeed too rampant." Everyone was overjoyed. Their eyes gathered on him. The purple-robed old man stood up and flicked his sleeves. "This alchemist 19 is going to suffer." A divine light shined in his eyes, filled with confidence. Soon, the inn received Qin Yu's first large contract. The materials were incomparably precious, and the rewards were astonishing. But what left one's heart racing was the compensation clause for failing to refine the pill. In short, if he succeeded, there would be tremendous benefits. But if he failed, his reputation would be ruined. Within Philosophy Watch, there were cheers and laughter. It's the elders' methods that are swift and fierce to take action against this Alchemist 19. As long as we can step on him, the inn's reputation will surely be damaged. It's not just damaged. The alchemist they vigorously promoted will be completely destroyed in the blink of an eye because of a failed refinement. In the future, who will dare to casually join the inn? The elders' actions are like taking drastic measures. It's just that I fear they won't agree to these conditions. If they don't dare to accept it, then don't advertise yourself as an alchemy grandmaster. Even if the inn really refuses, can't we advertise ourselves? We will make sure they lose all face. The purple-robed old man had a smug expression. No matter what he chose, the inn would suffer a great loss. It was unknown where the news came from, but the inn's Grand Master 19, cough cough, this name was only a rumor. After all, no one knew the specific information about this Grand Master. Since he refined pills in batch 2764 every time, that meant he was 19 in total. It was appropriate to call him Grandmaster 19. Of course, these were all minor details. What was important was that Grandmaster 19 had received a request to refine pills. It was said that the refinement difficulty was extremely high and the compensation terms were astonishing. An uproar of rumors began to spread. Many of the contents insinuated that this Master Number 19 didn't live up to his name, that he was just a way for the inn to attract attention, and that they probably didn't dare to accept this commission. Within the beast hunting battalion, Auntie Hong laid down a jade slip, her complexion gloomy. After personally inspecting the first batch of pills that Qin refined, she discovered that they had amazing medicinal efficacy and was immediately overjoyed. Using ordinary materials and without any other supplementary methods, and even refining them in large quantities, they were still of such high quality. This was proof of Qin Yu's alchemy skills. After a short period of thought, Auntie Hong decided to borrow this batch of pills to boost Grandmaster Qin's reputation. Thus, batches of 2,764 pills entered the market at low prices. However, a mere nascent soul cultivation wasn't enough to make one feel at ease. Thus, she intentionally concealed information about Qin Yu in order to increase his mysteriousness and avoid unnecessary suspicions. Everything proceeded smoothly. The explosive popularity of batch 2,764 attracted countless eyes. She took advantage of this opportunity to push out Qin Yu. This operation that had garnered a great deal of attention with minimal costs could be considered a success. Chapter 292. In the pill business, the most important thing was reputation and credibility. Over the years, even though the inn had been selling their pills at a high price, they had still been able to reap a massive market share by relying on the high quality of their pills. The profits from the pill business had been growing year after year. If Qin Yu were to be knocked down in the blink of an eye, the inn's reputation would likely suffer a great loss. At that time, if competitors like Philosophy Watch were to wantonly spread the news, the consequences would be unimaginable. Auntie Hong clenched her teeth. She stood up and went straight to the southeast corner of the backyard. The courtyard was full of women. Even though there were quite a few of them who were very willing to serve on the bed, there would still be inconveniences. In addition, refining pills required peace and quiet, so Qin Yu's residence was arranged there. Knock at the door. Qin Yu soon came out. He swept his eyes around. Auntie Hong, is something the matter? Auntie Hong nodded. Let's talk inside. A medicinal fragrance wafted through the air. The two of them sat down as host and guest. Qin Yu, I will speak frankly. Some time ago, I used some methods in an attempt to establish your status as soon as possible. Then, she spoke of the matter of selling pills without hiding anything. Grandmasters of the Tao of Alchemy are naturally different from ordinary alchemists. As long as they gain the recognition of the outside world, they will be able to profit, and Mr. Qin will also have a rich harvest. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. I've already heard what Auntie Hong said, and there isn't anything wrong with it. Could there have been an accident? Auntie Hong forced a smile. That's right. Our inn has been developing rapidly in recent years, and it is inevitable that we encroach on the interests of others. Philosophy Watch is one of them. Now they are secretly instructing a cultivator to ask me, no, to be more precise, to ask you to concoct pills. The details are here. You'll understand once you see them. Qin Yu received the jade slip and probed it with his divine sense. His eyebrows arched up. Divine blood pill. This was a pill refined from the blood of a spiritual god. After swallowing it, one could summon the phantom of a spiritual god and fuse it into their body, allowing them to possess a portion of the power of a spiritual god for a period of time. Of course, the gods here weren't truly omniscient and omnipotent gods. Instead, they were variant cultivators that possessed great strength and all sorts of inconceivable powers. The rewards for refining the divine blood pill were exceptionally generous. Countless rare and precious treasures were listed in a long list. But compared to the punishment for failing the refinement, it seemed to be insignificant. The blood of a god was extremely precious. If the refinement process failed, the refiner would have to pay an equivalent amount of money. Otherwise, the refiner would never be able to call himself an alchemist again. Considering the high reward, the compensation was reasonable. However, the last condition was simply killing without spilling blood. He could no longer call himself an alchemist. In other words, he could no longer help others concoct pills in the future. Qin Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light. This philosophy watch's methods were truly ruthless. Do you understand? Philosophy watch is filled with malice this time. Ani Hong thought about it again and again. She said in a low voice, "If Philosophy Watch chooses other pills this time, no matter how precious they are, even if Mayan has to suffer a loss, we will still bring out enough materials for Mr. Qin to refine them." But the divine blood pill, every portion of God blood, contained a unique divine strength. It was impossible for the same existence to appear. Once the refinement failed, there was no way to reverse it. Therefore, my opinion is that Mr. Qin should refuse to refine it. A trace of warmth flashed in Qin Yu's heart. He calmly said, "If I refuse, I fear that the inn's reputation will be damaged." Andi Hong lightly said, "The difficulty of refining the divine blood pill isn't much worse than the 9 mystic heavens pill. If Mr. Qin doesn't have full confidence in his ability to refine, it is reasonable for him to refuse." Although her tone was calm, one could still sense a bit of helplessness in it. Qin Yu smiled. "That's right, but I am very interested in their rewards." What did this mean? Andi Hong had a dignified expression. She took a deep breath. "Mr. Qin, your alchemy skills have already been proven. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future, so there is no need to fight for a moment of pride." Qin Yu waved his hand. "I am not being impulsive, but I am truly interested in their rewards. As for the divine blood pill, I am confident I can refine it." Auntie Hong shook. "Is Mr. Qin speaking the truth?" "Of course." "Good. I will immediately arrange it. If Mr. Qin has any needs, feel free to ask." She stood up and hurried away. Qin Yu had a calm expression. If this were before he refined the 9 mystic heavens pill, he wouldn't have dared to boast. But now that he had some experience in refining such a difficult pill. As long as he was cautious, there wouldn't be any problems. Moreover, once he succeeded, the benefits would be astonishing, not to mention the gratitude of the inn and the massive increase in his own status. But just the jade, crystal lotus that Philosophy Watch used to take revenge on was worth it for him to take action. This was because this treasure could enhance a cultivator's talent. Even if the jade crystal lotus was only the lowest quality treasure in the land of divinity and demons that could enhance one's talent, it was still a confirmation to Qin Yu. He wanted to know whether or not this sort of treasure could really help him change his talent. The inn accepted the pill commission. Originally, this was only a minor matter. Even if the divine blood pill was incomparably precious, it wasn't worth paying attention to unrelated cultivators. But this time, with the help of some hidden strength, it had clearly attracted far too much attention. There were even some people who revealed the specific details of the refinement, divine blood pill. Countless cultivators looked through this information on their handphones. Their minds surged with excitement, and they nearly crushed their screens. What nonsense! This was the divine blood pill. It was a terrifying pill that could summon the phantom of a spiritual god and obtain a portion of the power of a spiritual god. Moreover, in the rumors, the greatest use of this pill wasn't to allow a cultivator to obtain a formidable strength for a short period of time, but to borrow the power of a spiritual god to perceive the rules of the world. Those that could become spiritual gods were all beloved children of the heavens and earth. By borrowing their strength to perceive the rules, it was naturally much simpler. The divine blood pill's effects were so formidable that it was naturally difficult to refine it. It was said that only an alchemy grandmaster had a chance of refining it, and the chances of success didn't surpass 10%. This was because divine blood was an object of a spiritual god, and it shouldn't be controlled by a cultivator. To defy the heavens and obtain it was even more difficult. With such difficulty, they had actually accepted the commission. Were they that confident in this mysterious Grandmaster 19? The news spread further and further, attracting more and more attention. As countless cultivators were bewildered, another piece of news broke out, and this time it involved a specific commission. A portion of spiritual god's blood was produced from a 10,000-year ancient dark azure wood, combined with a mandala flower, Exayanchisi, Buddha's handgrass, bitter sorrow lotus, and 17 other materials. The divine blood pill would be refined. This news was like a hurricane that instantly swept through all corners of the world. It wildly spread through handphones. Countless cultivators sent out messages of surprise in their circle of friends. Just where does the yin get such confidence from? What are the chances of refining the divine blood pill with a portion of spiritual God's blood? Not even 5%. I have immersed myself in alchemy, and my horizons aren't low. But in my entire life, there has never been a single person that can refine the divine blood pill with just a portion of spiritual God's blood. I'll bet that the inn will fail this time, and their reputation will be swept to the ground. If you have any different opinions, you can place your bets in the comments section. I'll accept them all. In the tumultuous chaos, another piece of news broke out. This time, it involved the terms of compensation and remuneration for refining the divine blood pill. In an instant, this news blew up in the circle of friends once more. A female cultivator called Xiaoya took a picture of herself. After uploading it, she wrote, "Whoever can take out half of the compensation, I will immediately marry him. This post is proof." It was unknown who posted this to a famous forum, but it instantly became a hot topic. It attracted the attention of countless cultivators, and the comments were like a tide. "With your looks, you think you are worthy of half of the compensation? Fairy maiden, although you are beautiful, your thoughts are too wishful. Half of the compensation? I have 3 sisters in my family. How about marrying them all together?" Then there was a photo of the 3 sisters. They were actually beautiful twin sisters, all of them equally beautiful and charming. This attracted a wild wave of netizens, all of them requesting private messages and friend requests. Of course, there were also some that were a bit more normal. For instance, in the alchemy section of the forum, a rather famous administrator posted a public comment. His title was very impressive. "In the last 10 years, this is the best compensation I have ever seen." Then there was a detailed list of the compensation, and it was evaluated one by one. Finally, it came up with a mind-boggling price. The conclusion was that such an astonishing compensation naturally needed to be customized. The compensation terms were even harsher, and there was nothing wrong with the entire commission agreement. Some people agreed, and some people objected. There was no need to mention those who agreed. But those who objected believed that a single failure in refining an alchemy grandmaster's future was far too severe a punishment. But these words were instantly drowned out by even more comments. Most people's opinion was that since they wanted such an astonishing compensation, they had to pay the price. If they were afraid, they could refuse. No one was forcing them. Now, since they had accepted the commission, once they failed, they would have to be punished according to the agreement. From the very beginning, step by step, they attracted more and more attention, maintaining the heat of the topic. In the end, this matter was publicized to everyone, but they were still a step short Philosophy Watch. The purple-robed elder had a calm expression, as if he could destroy everything with a flick of his finger. "Elder's methods are excellent. I admire you. You repeatedly attacked, leaving the inn with no way to retreat. They were forced to accept the commission. With such a great commotion, once the inn's refinement fails, it will surely cause a great uproar. At that time, there will be no need for my philosophy watch to do anything. There will be others who will add fuel to the fire and ruin the inn's reputation. The purple-robed elder's expression became even more indifferent. He waved his hand, and the surroundings immediately fell silent. If I take action, how could the inn possibly escape? But do you think this is all there is to it? He took out his handphone and opened an app. On the wall of the conference room, a massive crystal screen lit up, broadcasting an interview program. Hello, everyone. I am Little Tan, who will be discussing the weather today. Our weather program team is in charge of the heavens, so we naturally have the qualifications to speak about the matters of the world. Thus, our program team has spent a great deal of effort to find the person involved in the recent uproar over the inn's pill commission. We have asked him to explain to us in detail about the divine blood pill. On the screen, as the camera zoomed out, a calm, middle-aged cultivator with calm eyes appeared. Hello, everyone. I am the client of the divine blood pill's refinement. An hour later, the interview program ended. The conference room was quiet for a moment before it was broken by the sound of people sucking in a breath of cold air. Elder's methods are excellent. I am filled with admiration. By placing the divine blood pill in front of everyone's eyes, even if the inn tries to deceive them, it will be impossible. Moreover, this will attract a massive amount of attention. Even if the inn admits defeat in the end, they can still use this interview to strike a powerful blow. Chapter 293. In a mountain valley at the peak of a waterfall, there was a floating city that shined with layers of light. This was where the inn's headquarters was located. It was called Waterfall City. Currently in Waterfall City, the vast majority of cultivators were either looking down at their handphones or staring at the screens on the walls. Their complexions gradually darkened. Half a month from now, I will receive a final reply from the inn. Whether I succeed or fail, the results will be displayed to everyone, and I will invite alchemy grandmasters from all over to comment. Just as the middle-aged cultivator's calm and powerful voice fell, the screens turned off. Around the long conference table, everyone frowned. All right, this is the current situation. It's clear that we have fallen into the other party's trap. Beneath his long golden hair was a face that seemed to have weathered the vicissitudes of life, but it was even more charming. His slightly sunken eye sockets made his gaze even sharper. I'm very curious. What exactly is the reason for our wise meeting of principles to lose their judgment and fall into such an inferior and obvious trap? Regarding this matter, I need an explanation. Around the long table, everyone frowned. Their eyes were dignified, but no one spoke first. The golden-haired man sighed. Could it be that I also need to personally investigate this matter? The door to the conference room opened. Beneath the white veil, her eyes were as calm as an ancient well, as calm as her voice. This matter is my decision. The golden-haired man's eyes brightened before he immediately composed himself. Miss Weiwei, even if you have an honored status, you cannot do something like this that harms the inn's interests. Lin Weiwei lightly said, I admit that there is a certain degree of risk involved in this matter, but if we can deal with it appropriately, it might be a chance to push the inn forward. The golden-haired man frowned. Miss, do you believe he can refine the divine blood pill? He has already refined the 9 mystic heavens pill. This wasn't a reply, but it was the most favorable one. The golden-haired man's eyebrows furrowed even tighter. How ridiculous! Can the 9 mystic heavens pill and the divine blood pill be compared? The miss hasn't invested too much time into the path of alchemy, so it's normal for you to not know. But you all, he swept his eyes around the conference room. You all don't know your limits. Do you all allow the miss to do as she pleases? The conference room fell deathly silent. The golden-haired man turned around. Miss, announce that you have given up on refining the divine blood pill and also dismiss this alchemist Chinyu. Announce to the public that the inn was deceived by him and that it was fortunate that we discovered him in time so there weren't any worse consequences. I have already made the appropriate arrangements to minimize the damage to the inn's reputation. Lin Weiwei's eyes are cold. My brother is not here. The golden-haired man's face stiffened. Therefore, alchemist Jin Cheng, I am the current representative of the inn. My decision is the highest standard. You have no right to change it. Jin Cheng's eyes were filled with anger. Miss, although you are the representative as the chief alchemist, I have the right to question and call for a vote. In the end, I have the right to reject your decision. Lin Weiwei turned around. Then I ask Pale Master Jincheng to come find me after the vote has been initiated. Miss, are you stubbornly going to protect this Chinyu? Lin Weiwei did not look back. I believe he can succeed. Jin Cheng was so angry that he laughed. What if he fails? Lin Weiwei paused for a moment. Then she pushed open the door and left. I will bear all the consequences. In the meeting room, the various representatives all had strange complexions for the miss to care about this Chinyu so much. It was rumored that the two of them had gone through life and death together in the wilderness, and this person had even saved her life. Could it be Jin Cheng's complexion paled? He flicked his sleeves and left. After returning to his residence, the last bit of calm on his face turned into anger. Chief, it seems that the miss treats this Chinyu a little differently. A subordinate strategist cautiously asked. Jin Cheng angrily shouted, "Shut up!" His eyes were cloudy and uncertain. After a long time, he coldly said, "Pass down the order. Headquarters storehouse is to be sealed. Without my permission, no one is allowed to transfer any materials." He looked over. The strategist's heart stirred. He said, "Chief, rest assured that I will look after those 2 portions of god blood." He respectfully took several steps back and left. Jin Cheng's eyes flashed with a cold light. He wanted to see just how this Chinyu would refine the divine blood pill without a chance to experiment. Once he failed, this matter would surely have an extremely bad influence on the inn. At that time, if he were to erase it, even the miss wouldn't be able to oppose him. Lin Weiwei returned to her residence. She took out a scroll and earnestly flipped through it, as if she had already forgotten about the direct confrontation she had with the chief alchemist just now. The female official walked over and slowly said, "Miss, aren't you a bit impulsive today?" Lin Weiwei looked up. "Do you also think I was wrong?" The assistant bowed. "I don't dare to, but Miss should know that the chief alchemist and the others have long been dissatisfied with you obtaining the authority to act as agent. If you give them a chance today, I fear they will threaten your position." Lin Weiwei looked away. She casually flipped a page. "Then I'll hand over the authority in my hands. I don't like these things to begin with." The assistant's expression became increasingly solemn. "Miss, words are wrong. When the young master isn't here, the authority of the family can only be controlled by you. How can it fall into the hands of outsiders? This is the ancestral rule." Lin Weiwei waved her hand. "Enough. I want to study. You can leave." The assistant revealed a helpless expression. She bowed and quietly left. She stepped out of the hall and quietly stood there for a moment. Soon, a maid walked over and whispered something into her ear. Then she bowed and hurried away. The assistant narrowed her eyes. She looked towards a corner of Waterfall City. There was an incomparably large and beautiful courtyard there. After thinking for a long time, she stepped away. Although her steps were fast, they still gave off a solemn and dignified feeling. Along the way, all the maids she met bowed in respect, awe on their faces. A moment later, there was a sudden flash of light. Within the transmission array, a sealed metal box vanished from sight. The assistant narrowed her eyes. She whispered to herself, "Mr. Chin, you had best not fail. Otherwise, even if you save the miss, I won't let you off." There was a knock on Qin Yu's courtyard door once more. He was currently deducing the process of refining the divine blood pill. With half a month's deadline, there was plenty of time. He naturally didn't need to be as anxious as when he was refining the 9 mystic heavens pill. Of course, the most important reason was that there was only a single portion of God blood. Even if the little blue lamp could recycle it and reuse it, there would still be some losses. According to Qin Yu's estimates, he would have at most 6 chances before the God blood was used up. Feeling the fluctuations of spells, Qin Yu frowned. He stood up and opened the courtyard door. Auntie Hong passed over a metal box. She earnestly said, "Mr. Qin, I don't know how confident you are, but I hope that you can do your best." She bowed and turned to leave. She didn't want to delay Qin Yu's time even for a single word. He closed the courtyard door and brought the metal box back to his alchemy room. Even though he already had some speculations in his heart, he still couldn't help but widen his eyes as he opened them, a dignified look on his face. Within the metal box were some perfectly sealed alchemy materials. But none of that was important. What was important was a jade bottle that was burning with a white flame. Most people likely didn't know what sort of state God blood was in. Thus, if one considered it from a literal point of view, they would be underestimating such a precious treasure. For instance, the white flame in front of him, as well as the dark green halo that rippled like water in the pill commission. Both of them were God blood. Although the 2 auras were different, Qin Yu knew that his senses wouldn't be wrong. Was it for him to familiarize himself with the refining process? As he thought, there was someone in the inn who stood on his side. Otherwise, he feared he wouldn't have had the right to accept this commission. But who was the one helping him? Although Auntie Hong's status wasn't low, she clearly didn't have such formidable abilities. Qin Yu's mind flashed back to the wild spring of spiritual strength and the crazy woman he had met. He whispered, "Could it be you?" After several breaths of time, he gathered these thoughts. His eyes fell onto the white flame, gradually brightening. When it came to refining pills compared to others, his greatest advantage was that the materials could be reused. The second advantage was that the grade of the pill could be promoted. It was difficult to refine a true divine blood pill, but he had some confidence in refining a half-finished pill, or even something that had an elementary form and could be called a waste pill because the toxicity was greater than the medicinal properties. To Qin Yu, achieving this step was already more than enough. Now that he had another portion of God blood, he had several more chances to try and control it. With this commission, he had a 90% chance of success. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Mr. Qin's courtyard doors were still tightly shut. No one knew what was happening inside. Auntie Hong had issued strict orders that no one was allowed to approach and no one was allowed to disturb him. The young maid was the only one allowed to approach the courtyard. She frowned and looked at the courtyard doors, constantly muttering to herself, "Mr. Qin, you must succeed. Otherwise my family's miss will be miserable. Smelly chief, bad chief, you always make things difficult for my family's miss. Wait until I'm strong in the future, and I'll definitely beat you until your head is full of bumps." But as she thought about her own cultivation speed, she feared that even after 100 years or 1,000 years, she still wouldn't be able to defeat him. She couldn't help but feel discouraged, and a bit of worry appeared on her face. The young maid took out her handphone. Unsurprisingly, on the hot search list, the inn's pill commission was still at the top of the list. The popularity didn't diminish at all. Even the scandal of a famous female celebrity was firmly suppressed, causing the operations team to go crazy. Unfortunately, no matter what methods they used, they still couldn't attract any attention. They could only accept their fate and laugh and cry. The young maid bit her lips. Then she opened the relevant post and began to earnestly reply. "I believe that Alchemist 19 will definitely be able to refine the divine blood pill. He is extremely strong." These words were immediately met with a wave of counterattacks. "Little sister, you can eat, but you can't speak nonsense. Where does your confidence come from? I've roamed Weibo for hundreds of years, and this is the first time I've seen such a naive person. Calling you 50 cents is an insult to 50 cents. The brother above is too vicious. How could such a delicate little beauty withstand this? Dare I ask, is this fairy maiden's chest original? This old man is quite curious. It seems that the poster knows this Alchemist 19. Of course, that is only a guess. Perhaps he is using this opportunity to attract attention. This old lady has seen this sort of thing many times. A portion of god blood to refine the divine blood pill? What a joke! If this could really be done, then this young master would live stream himself eating a handphone. Moreover, it's a Snow brand handphone with an all-alloy body. Chapter 294. The replies were all over the place, but it was clear that they were all mocking and ridiculing her. The young maid was so angry that her eyes turned red. She seriously replied a few more posts, but soon she was so stifled that she couldn't say anything. Her tears began to flow down her face. Pah! After being slapped on the head, the young maid looked up with tears in her eyes. She curled her lips in grievance. Auntie Hong, they scolded me, Auntie Hong sighed. She reached out a hand to hold her. That's enough, little girl. Facts are always more powerful than words. Much less a group of people who only dare to play with their fingers in this illusory world. Just ignore them. But Auntie Hong knows that you are worried, but since things have come to the step, we can only patiently wait. When we saved the miss, we didn't have any confidence in Mr. Qin at all, but what was the result? He refined the 9 mystic heavens pill, and the miss was saved. The young maid shook her head several times. She nodded. I believe in Mr. Qin. He can definitely do it. Auntie Hong faintly smiled. She gently stroked her hair, but there was a bit of restlessness in her eyes. The divine blood pill was far more difficult to refine than the 9 mystic heavens pill. Even with the second portion of god blood that the miss had gifted him, the chances of success didn't surpass 20%. Her eyes fell on the courtyard, and she sighed inwardly. Mr. Qin, I'll have to trouble you. At this time, whether it was Waterfall City, Philosophy Watch, or even other vast places, many people were wondering what Qin Yu, Grandmaster 19, was doing at this time. There were even some bored individuals that opened up posts on Weibo, allowing everyone to freely guess what he was doing. This caused a wave of lively replies. Some people thought that he was painstakingly thinking about how to refine the divine blood pill. Some people thought that he had already failed and was in pain and despair. There were even some people who thought that this mysterious grandmaster was already considering whether or not to leave his hometown and find another way out. Of course, these people were all wrong. Qin Yu was cultivating. It was more accurate to say that he was swallowing pills to restore the strength he had lost. Of course, during this process, his cultivation would inevitably receive benefits. Although he had been refining pills for the inn for less than a month, he had already obtained a great deal of benefits. From looking at the overwhelming pill, essence Chun pill, blood spirit pill, and other pills he refined, one could see that these were all pills that he needed for his current cultivation. In order to advance his 5-element nascent souls, he needed to consume 5 times the strength of an ordinary cultivator. If he didn't have pills to support him, then with his current talent he could only despair. After refining the last bit of medicinal efficacy in his body, he could feel that whether it was his magic power, mortal body, or soul, they had all been restored to their peak. In fact, they had even strengthened a little. Qin Yu slowly opened his eyes, a sharp light flashing within. The inn had given him 5 chances to refine the god blood, and now he only had 1 chance left. Qin Yu didn't plan on completely ruining it. Thus, he put away the remaining materials and took out the divine blood pill materials that Philosophy Watch had given him. After 5 failures, Qin Yu's harvests were tremendous. Although the attributes of the 2 god blood were different, in the end, they all reached the same goal. His finger cut through the void and a flame flashed. With a flick of his sleeves, he tossed it into the fleeting flame furnace. Surging heat erupted, galvanizing heaven and earth's spiritual strength to continuously pour into it. When it came to alchemy, Qin Yu's talent could only be considered average. But he had obtained Taoist Wang's experiences, Jade Slip in Immortal Eclipse Valley, as well as the Eighth Furnace's Samsara Inheritance, so his alchemy background was extremely deep. In addition, after obtaining the little blue lamp, he had refined pills countless times. As the saying went, practice makes perfect. His true alchemy skills had reached an extremely high level. He began to refine the pill. The divine blood pill used God blood as its foundation. The first material to be added was this. He took the jade bottle and wiped away the seal. A dark green halo of light immediately flowed out, as if it had a mind of its own and wanted to escape. Qin Yu had already expected this. He lifted a hand and a seal erupted, suppressing the god blood from fusing into the pill furnace. At the same time, he activated his hand seals and a suction force erupted from the fleeting flame furnace. A massive amount of heaven and earth spiritual strength crazily poured into it. God blood was noble and had its own pride. It wouldn't easily submit and allow itself to be refined by cultivators. Thus, in Qin Yu's understanding, the flames that flourish today could be considered a killing blow. He would first intimidate it and then slowly refine it. Of course, he could also use gentle methods to try and obtain the approval of the god blood, but the effects might not be as good as this killing blow. As he thought, the god blood flew into a rage and began to fiercely resist. The fleeting flame furnace trembled, emitting dull thumping sounds from time to time. It was like something was rampaging inside, as if the pill furnace was about to explode. Qin Yu had a calm expression. He continued to form hand seals, controlling the temperature of the fleeting flame furnace and causing it to constantly rise. A moment later, there seemed to be an angry roar in his ears. The dull, thumping sounds from the pill furnace slowly faded away. Qin Yu lifted a hand, and the first material, the withered, twig-like, cold crossing grass, rapidly flew into the fleeting flame furnace. Beneath the high temperature, the cold crossing grass rapidly melted and faint traces of cold energy escaped. Although it was thin, it contained a terrifyingly low temperature that could freeze all. But now, this low temperature didn't clash with the horrifying heat of the fleeting flame furnace. Rather, it was rapidly absorbed by the god blood and condensed into a dark green ice bead within the flames. Very good, it was just as he thought. Although the attributes of the god blood were different, there was no difference in their essence. However, how were they able to possess completely different attributes under the premise that they were essentially the same? This thought suddenly appeared in Qin Yu's mind. Then, he discovered that he couldn't continue thinking about it. It wasn't that he couldn't, but that he didn't dare to. Or, it could be said that with his current cultivation, he didn't have the qualifications to step into it. Qin Yu's heart chilled. He decisively suppressed this thought and gathered all his thoughts together, not allowing them to stir. He took out the second material, hidden earth root. It was like a child's arm, but it had shrunk by a great deal and was only as thick as a finger. The refining process went smoothly. Qin Yu avoided many small twists and turns. Now he had added in 11 materials, and the pill furnace was still calm. And besides the god blood, the divine blood pill required a total of 17 materials. In other words, he only needed 6 more to successfully refine it. Qin Yu didn't feel happy at all. Instead, he became increasingly dignified. This was because of the 5 previous failures. Besides the first 2 attempts, all of them had failed starting from the 12th material. The 12th material, Water Moon. It was called Water Moon, and its appearance was similar to a pool of water with a full moon reflected in it. But who would have thought that such a strange thing was actually a fruit that grew from a branch? Qin Yu exerted strength in his hand, and the fruit broke apart. But what flowed out wasn't juice, but hazy moonlight. It was like a moon shrouded in mist in the dark of night, dim and mysterious. Qin Yu had a dignified expression. He reached out a hand, and all of the moonlight gathered in his hand. Then it truly formed a moon phantom. With a flick of his sleeves, the moon phantom flew into the fleeting flame furnace. Within his divine sense, he could see that this moon phantom wasn't like the other materials that directly fused into the god blood. Rather, it floated within the pill furnace, sprinkling down moonlight like a spring rain that quietly covered the god blood. And beneath this moonlight, the 11 materials that had fused together with the god blood began to undergo subtle changes. They became even closer to each other, as if they were a single whole. After the moon phantom was the sun wheel. Before Qin Yu refined the divine blood pill, he never imagined that there would be such a mystical refining method in the path of alchemy. It seemed to draw upon the essence of the sun and moon. He lifted his hand, and a crimson fruit appeared in his palm. It emitted a blinding light. It was a sun in his palm. He pointed a finger at the fruit, and spiritual strength erupted. On the surface of the fruit, golden runes lit up, and it violently exploded. Then the exploded fragments were wrapped up in heaven and earth, spiritual strength, and poured into the fleeting flame furnace. Within the pill furnace, a blazing hot wind seemed to blow through. Then, outside the moon phantom, a great sun phantom appeared. The sun and moon shined together. Qin Yu's hand seals suddenly sped up, but a moment later his complexion changed. Bang! There was a muffled explosion within the fleeting flame furnace. Then, a light fragrance wafted out. This smell was extremely strange. When it entered the mouth and nose, it was sweet and delicious. But once it entered the body, it turned into something disgusting and nauseating. Qin Yu's complexion paled. Within his Dantian Sea's great Tao base, the little blue lamp flashed with light. The discomfort within his body rapidly vanished. Then a wisp of red appeared like a thread and sank into his right index finger. This red thread, Qin Yu frowned, his eyes dignified. He was sure that he had only felt nauseous just now and hadn't noticed anything else. Looking at the red thread that sank into his finger and connected to his entire body, Qin Yu felt a chill rise from the depths of his heart. This was the curse of the heavens and earth. Qin Yu was startled. It was like he instinctively knew the origin of this red thread. This was the punishment one would receive if they defied the will of the heavens and failed. God blood wasn't something that cultivators could use. If it weren't for the little blue lamp, Qin Yu might not have felt any changes in his body for some time. But this red thread hidden within his body would surely give him a great pleasant surprise in the future. So, why hadn't such a situation occurred the last 5 times he had failed? And did they know the consequences of failing to refine the divine blood pill? If they knew, why didn't they warn him ahead of time? Qin Yu's complexion darkened. After a long period of silence, he flicked his sleeves, and the fleeting flame furnace opened, spitting out the burnt waste within. He could verify these matters in the future. Right now, the most important thing was to refine the divine blood pill. He looked up at the clock embedded in the wall. This was a simple magic tool driven by spirit stones. It could accurately calculate the time, and each tick represented 2 hours. There was still some time before nightfall. Qin Yu took out some pills and swallowed them. 2 hours later, Qin Yu opened his eyes. He lifted his palm, and a deep blue light circulated. The little blue lamp slowly appeared. With a thought, it flew up on its own. The light it emitted was like a stream of water that covered the waste materials. Perhaps it was because the little blue lamp had swallowed tribulation thunder, but its abilities had risen. The speed at which it decomposed waste materials was much faster than before. Pieces of icicle were rapidly peeled off. Qin Yu had already sorted them out and put them away. Soon, all that was left over was the largest piece of pitch black. It was as silent as charcoal. No matter how the deep blue light covered it, it didn't change at all. Qin Yu frowned. He had already peeled off the god blood 5 times, and everything had gone smoothly. It wasn't any different from the other materials. But this time it seemed he had used a bit more time. An hour. 2 hours. For hours. Chapter 295. This was the first time he had encountered a situation where the little blue lamp couldn't separate itself. Was it because of the god blood? However, he had already successfully dissected the white, flame-like god blood. There was no problem. What was going on? He took a deep breath and suppressed the shaking in his heart. Then he put away the little blue lamp and revealed a thoughtful expression. But in the end he gained nothing. But if he couldn't separate the god blood, then the refinement of the divine blood pill would be considered a failure. Qin Yu could not accept this result. It would ruin all of his plans and even place him in a dangerous situation. He had no way of knowing what the inn's attitude would be. Moreover, it was impossible for them to continue being friendly to him after suffering such heavy losses. Perhaps there was something special about this god's blood that required more time to be extracted? Qin Yu wasn't sure, but there was nothing else he could do. He took out some pills, forced himself to calm down, and entered a state of cultivation. In a situation where he couldn't continue refining pills for the entire day, he couldn't just sit around and waste time. Taking 10,000 steps back, even if the refinement really failed, when faced with a dangerous situation, the stronger his cultivation was, the more power he would have to protect himself. Night fell as scheduled. Qin Yu opened his eyes and took out the little blue lamp without hesitation. Light covered that pitch-black mass once more, but there was still no change to it. It wasn't that nothing had changed, but rather, nothing had changed throughout the night. It was exactly the same as it had been in the beginning. Qin Yu's heart sank to the pit of his stomach. Although he was puzzled no matter how he thought about it, he had already prepared himself for failure. A bitter smile appeared on his face. He had hoped to use this opportunity to gain a foothold in the inn and use the inn's power to protect himself. Then he would cultivate with all his strength, striving to step into divine soul as soon as possible. At that time, with his divine soul cultivation, he would truly have the strength to walk through the land of divinity and demons. Because the location of the immortal sect was very, very far away, so far that the search results on the phone only showed that nascent soul could not be crossed. Nascent soul couldn't cross it, but divine soul could. But now, perhaps all of that would have to be postponed indefinitely. During the day, Qin Yu put away the little blue lamp. Although he was sure that no one would disturb him at this time, he still didn't want the slightest possibility of the little blue lamp being exposed. He already had enough troubles. He didn't want to tie himself with any more uncertain and dangerous factors. Qin Yu was considering how to escape this situation. That's right, to put it bluntly, he was preparing to run. There was nothing to be embarrassed about, resentful or unwilling. All right, there was indeed a little bit of unwillingness, but only a little bit. Since there was an accident, he could only change his plan and try his best to protect himself. As long as he was alive, everything was possible. He could start over again. In his mind, he imagined countless possibilities and made countless plans. Gradually, his heart calmed down. Of course, there was no preparation in this world, because accidents could happen at any time. Therefore, his thoughts were still taut, and he did not relax in the slightest. The night was like water. In the darkness, Qin Yu opened his eyes. He looked at the pitch-black ground and thought for a moment before taking out the little blue lamp. Perhaps there was still hope. With this thought in mind, he continued day after day until the deadline of half a month approached. Tomorrow was the delivery date. In Waterfall City, the chief alchemist coldly sneered. He signed a document to convene a meeting of managers. In tomorrow's meeting, he would come up with a plan to deal with the situation and reduce the impact on the inn to the minimum. At the same time, he would cause that alchemist Qin Yu to fall into a state of eternal damnation. He would cut off all possibilities until he died. As for the young miss, a woman shouldn't wield the authority of a man to begin with. Once she handed over everything, perhaps the chief alchemist's lips curved up in a smile. He was actually looking forward to tomorrow a little more. The bright hall didn't dim in the slightest just because night had arrived. Lin Weiwei held a book, her thoughts immersed in it. She was a studious woman. It seemed that she was reading books all the time when she wasn't working. No one knew where she found these almost endless books. The assistant had a gloomy expression. She quickly walked in, her mood a bit bad. Her footsteps were a bit heavy. Lin Weiwei looked up, a bit of confusion in her eyes. Then she focused. She rubbed her temples and asked, "What is it?" If it weren't for the fact that she knew that the young miss was always in this state, the assistant would have lost control of herself. She said in a low voice, "Miss, tomorrow is the delivery date for the pill commission." Lin Weiwei had a light expression. "Looking at you, did you fail?" The assistant shook her head. "There is no news." She paused for a moment and continued to say, "But there has been no phenomenon so far. I believe that the chances of failure are over 90%. So, Miss needs to make preparations as soon as possible." "Prepare for what?" "To protect your rights." Lin Weiwei lowered her head to look at her book. "You know that I don't care much about these things." The assistant clenched her teeth. She waved away the maids and lowered her voice. "But the second miss cares." Lin Weiwei frowned. She looked up once more. The assistant continued to say, "You should know the second Mrs. Temper. If she wakes up and learns of the result of this matter, she will never give up. At that time, great waves will surely arise." Lin Weiwei was silent. The assistant decided to reveal her trump card. "If the second miss goes crazy and the young master isn't here, no one will be able to suppress her. At that time, if something happens, Miss must be mentally prepared." Lin Weiwei's complexion changed. It was unknown what she was thinking, but she revealed a look of lingering fear. With her personality, for her to show such emotions meant that this matter was no trifling matter. "All right, I got it." This sentence indicated that he had compromised. The assistant respectfully bowed and then turned to leave. Her feet were soft and her lips curved up in a cold smile. The young master and miss were one family. The entire inn was a family matter. So how could an outsider dare to interfere? So what if he was the chief disciple? Did he really think that he could have other thoughts? The assistant's complexion became even colder. She thought back to the beast hunting battalion and that Mr. Chin that Ani Hong had recommended. Killing intent tumbled in her eyes. He had wasted a portion of god blood and brought trouble to the inn. Moreover, there seemed to be some connection between him and the second miss. This sort of person should be erased as soon as possible. Auntie Hong gently sighed. This was already the last night. Even now, there was still no news from the courtyard. Perhaps this in itself explained everything. The divine blood pill was different from other pills. Because it contained god blood, it could galvanize the rules of the world. When the pill was formed, there would definitely be a phenomenon occurring. Now that everything was calm, that meant the pill hadn't formed yet, or that it had already failed. After all, even with the god blood that the miss had given him, that was only 2 portions of materials. Half a month was more than enough time to completely use it up. However, Qin Yu's calm and confident demeanor from half a month ago. Auntie Hong shook her head, a bitter smile on her face. How could she have believed him? Moreover, the miss had actually believed him. If this matter was seriously investigated, then she would have a great deal of responsibility and wouldn't be able to escape punishment. There was the sound of footsteps behind her. Auntie Hong's complexion sank. She turned and said, "Didn't I say that no one is allowed to casually approach?" Peony stopped in the distance. "Auntie Hong, there is a message from Waterfall City." Auntie Hong's complexion changed for a moment before she composed herself. She stepped forwards and took the jade slip. After several breaths of time, she laid down the jade slip, a helpless smile on her face. This was indeed that woman's style. However, since she was going to be punished in the end, doing this wasn't too bad. At the very least, she could help the miss bear less responsibility. "Auntie Hong, what is it?" The young maid had a worried expression. Auntie Hong smiled. "It's nothing. It's just that I might not be able to look after you in the future. The young maid's eyes widened. Peony's eyes turned red. Auntie Hong, how can you be blamed for this? It was clearly Waterfall City that agreed. Auntie Hong waved her hand. That's enough. Don't say such things again in the future. If someone comes to ask you, you know how to answer. She turned around and looked at the quiet courtyard. Then she spoke in a soft voice, as if making her final judgment. I was the one who requested to accept the Alchemy Commission. All consequences will be borne by me. The sky brightened. There was no phenomenon. The last bit of anticipation in Auntie Hong's eyes dissipated. She turned and walked outside. Pass down the order that the inn will be closed for the time being. Once the new manager arrives, all of you just need to listen to his orders. Auntie Hong! The young maid cried out in sorrow. She wasn't too bright, but she wasn't stupid. She just didn't want to think too much about it. Auntie Hong didn't turn around, but her voice sounded out in her ears. After Mr. Chin comes out, have him immediately leave. If he is too late, I fear there will be a great disaster. A moment later, after making some general arrangements, she faintly smiled and stepped into the transmission array. Waterfall City. Chief Alchemist Jean Cheng's complexion was heavy. He slowly said, Philosophy Watch's plot has succeeded. The entire meeting room was deathly silent. Everyone knew that this was only the beginning of an upheaval. Now that the curtains had opened, the storm that would follow was something that not even they had the qualifications to interfere in. They could only wait for the result. On handphones, news had already begun to fly about. Although no one dared to reveal their true identity, there was one point that could be confirmed. The inn's alchemy commission had failed. Countless cultivators had excited expressions. Although they wouldn't obtain any benefits from this storm, their dark and sinister natures made them happy to see a colossus overturn. Of course, perhaps overturn was a bit too serious to describe it. But no matter who it was, they knew that with such a great ruckus, it was impossible for this matter to pass so easily. The inn would surely suffer a great misfortune. As for that, Grandmaster number 19. Oh, that's not right. From today onwards, it would be inappropriate to call him Grandmaster. It should be the pitiful alchemist number 19. He was just a pawn to be sacrificed in this show, especially now that he no longer had any value. He naturally couldn't attract any more attention. At this time, everyone's eyes were focused on the inn, waiting for their response. However, before the inn's response could be heard, the surging undercurrents beneath the water surface had already begun to wildly laugh. The young maid sat there in a daze. Auntie Hong had left. Perhaps she would never have the chance to see her again. She suddenly wanted to cry. Her eyes turned red and tears fell down her cheeks, falling onto her chest. That's right, it was her chest. Perhaps this could also be considered some sort of annoyance that came with being too great. In her entire life, she would never be able to taste the poignant beauty of a teardrop falling to the ground and shattering into pieces. Suddenly, a light sound entered her ears. The young maid's ears moved. But I am sad, I don't want to move. She lowered her head, continuing to immerse herself in her sorrow. Eventually, the light in front of her dimmed. A voice sounded out, Why are you crying? The young maid suddenly forgot to cry. Her eyes widened, and she looked up, her face filled with astonishment. However, her eyes that had brightened up soon dimmed, leaving behind only disappointment. Before Auntie Hong left, she had said that when the divine blood pill formed, there would be a world phenomenon. But she had been here the entire time, and there hadn't been any movement at all, much less any phenomenon. Chapter 296. Qin Yu frowned. He looked at the dazed young maid in front of him. His eyes fell onto her chest, where her tears were wet. He was immediately touched and coughed, looking away. Song Song, where is Auntie Hong? A bit of resentment rose in the young maid's heart. But as she thought about how this person had saved her miss, she suppressed her thoughts and bowed. Mr. Chin, Auntie Hong asked me to tell you to immediately leave after you come out. Otherwise, there will be a disaster." She sobbed and continued to say, "Auntie Hong, Auntie Hong, she went to Waterfall City." Waterfall City? What was the meaning of this puzzled look? No matter how weak the young maid was, she still couldn't help but feel annoyed. She clenched her teeth. That's where the inn's headquarters is located. Auntie Hong took the initiative to accept Philosophy Watch's pill refining commission, and now she has no choice but to go to Waterfall City to accept her punishment. Qin Yu looked at the young maid's angry appearance and rubbed his chin. "Who said I failed?" The young maid's eyes widened. "Ah." Time returned to last night. In the alchemy room, the little blue lamp's brilliance was like a deep blue sea, deep and transparent. The pitch-black mass that was bathed in it began to dissolve without warning. Then that pitch-black mass was stripped away, leaving behind only a dazzling green light. Qin Yu, who had already prepared himself to leave, revealed a stunned expression. He bitterly smiled. He never imagined that, at the final moment, the god blood would be completely stripped away. Moreover, it seemed much different from how it was at the start. But at this time, he didn't have the mind to care about these things. This was because there were still 4 hours until dawn. If he hurried, he should be able to complete the refinement in 4 hours. But if he delayed, it would affect his plan to escape and might even cause him to fail. After a brief moment of hesitation, Qin Yu revealed a firm look. Since he still had one more chance, he shouldn't give it up. After all, the inn's opportunity was extremely important to him. If he could grasp it, it would greatly improve his situation and allow him to step onto the road to the immortal sect earlier. Qin Yu had always been a decisive person. Since he made his decision, he suppressed all other thoughts. His finger cut through the void and ignited the fleeting flame furnace. He threw away everything else and immersed his mind in it. Then, the entire pill refining process proceeded smoothly. It was like the divine blood pill already existed, and all he needed to do was throw in the materials in order. The sky brightened. The refining of the divine blood pill had reached the final critical juncture. When the first ray of sunlight shined down, the fleeting flame furnace opened. A pill that was surrounded by deep green bloodlines flew out and fell into Qin Yu's hand. There wasn't the least bit of sound, nor was there anything strange. Qin Yu, who already had some understanding of the divine blood pill, revealed a surprised look. Was it a success or a failure? His mind was immersed. By relying on the little blue lamp, Qin Yu finally found the reason why no phenomenon had appeared. He had been delayed until now. The young maid's face flushed red. She stammered, Mr. Qin, why we refined it." She immediately bit down on the tip of her tongue. "But when the divine blood pill is born, there will definitely be a phenomenon." Qin Yu coughed. "About that, I'm not too sure." Since he couldn't explain matters involving the little blue lamp, he could only play dumb. As fake Qin spoke, far away in Waterfall City, the meeting of managers had already begun. The chief alchemist's voice was stern as he pointed out the difficult situation facing the inn. Philosophy Watch has sent out a pill commission, but after it fails, it's impossible for them to be the only ones kicking us while we're down. What the inn will have to face is the malicious attacks of all competitors in the same industry. He swept his eyes around, a pained expression on his face. I already said that it was impossible for Qin Yu to succeed, but no one believed me. Otherwise, the situation wouldn't have reached this point. The hearts of all the managers in the meeting chilled. They knew that the chief alchemist was using this as a pretext to start settling accounts. Lin Weiwei sat in the seat of honor, her expression calm and indifferent, as if she didn't hear any of this at all. Behind her, the assistant lowered her head, but a cold chill lingered around her, so cold that it seemed to seep into one's bones. Jean Qing frowned. He was surprised by Lin Weiwei's calmness. But today the situation was with him, and he wouldn't shrink back in the slightest. "Miss, I wonder if you said that you would take responsibility for this matter on your own?" Lin Weiwei looked up. But before she could speak, the assistant spat out icy words. "Chief Alchemist, please remember your status and recognize the status of the miss. Do you wish to offend your superiors?" Jean Chung remained expressionless. "As the chief alchemist of the inn, I have the qualifications to supervise the agents. Moreover, this matter was done willfully by the miss. Everyone present today has witnessed it with their own eyes. I wouldn't dare to offend my superiors, but this matter has caused tremendous damage to my inn, so I naturally have to give an explanation." The assistant coldly said, "Even if I wanted to give an explanation, I wouldn't be able to find the miss. Chief Alchemist, please clarify this matter before coming back." Jean Chung frowned. Could it be that the miss wants to shift the blame onto someone else? The assistant's eyes turned even colder. She clapped her hands, and the doors to the meeting room opened. Auntie Hong walked in, her expression calm. She lightly said, "In this matter, the fault is all on me. It has nothing to do with the miss." Jean Chung turned around, his eyes as sharp as arrows. "Hong Ruo, I fear that you don't have the qualifications to take full responsibility for this matter." Auntie Hong's complexion was calm. "The miss has been adventuring in the area under my jurisdiction and owes me a great favor. It was I who used this favor as the price to request the miss to allow Mr. Chin to accept the commission. I originally wanted to use this matter as a chance to push Mr. Chin up in exchange for great merit points so that I could enter Waterfall City and become the true manager. But I never thought that I would fail in the end and cause so much trouble for the inn. All of this is on me, and I am willing to bear all the consequences." The meeting room was in an uproar. Many eyes fell on Lin Weiwei, revealing astonishment and awe. Just what was going on here? Everyone here was a smart person, so they could clearly see what was going on. The young Mrs. Trick of escaping was truly beautiful. She easily pushed all the trouble onto Hong Ruo. Most importantly, the young miss was actually able to make Hong Ruo willingly accept the punishment. This kind of method was truly shocking. Jean Chung paled. He was well aware that if Hong Ruo insisted on doing this, there was nothing he could do to target Lin Weiwei. He would miss a great opportunity like this. He took a deep breath and coldly said, "Hong Ruo, do you know what you are saying right now? Do you know how serious the consequences of this matter will be? Do you know whether or not you are truly prepared to bear all the consequences?" Cold intent filled the air. Auntie Hong was silent for a moment. Then she lightly said, "It is my fault, it is my fault. There is nothing more to say. I will accept whatever punishment the chief disciple wishes to give me." "Good, good, good." Jean Cheng was so angry that he actually smiled. "Although the miss had a reason for this, you still have to bear a certain degree of responsibility for today's consequences. So, when it comes to punishment, the miss cannot interfere." He was going to be ruthless now. Lin Weiwei frowned. The assistant quickly reached out a hand and pulled on the hem of her clothes. She said, "Everything will be as the chief alchemist says." She lowered her voice and continued to say, "Miss, as long as you retain your authority, there will always be a chance in the future to exempt Hong Ruo from punishment." Lin Weiwei looked at the calm Auntie Hong. She sighed inwardly and slowly nodded. Jean Cheng's eyes flashed with savagery. "Hong Ruo, for your own selfishness, you have neglected the inn's interests and caused tremendous damage to the inn. Today, with my status as the chief alchemist, I punish you to enter the cave of eternal cold. You will be forced to spend the rest of your life gathering ice seeds, never to be pardoned." The young maid's heart had never raced so fast before. But as she thought about Auntie Hong's current situation and the difficulties the miss had encountered, she felt endless strength surge out from her weak body. Standing outside the meeting room, she tried her best to keep her face taut, not allowing her voice to fluctuate. She took out a token. "I am the Miss's personal assistant. There is an important matter that I must immediately see the miss. Open the door." The guards glanced at each other in dismay. The token was real, but it only represented that she was close to the miss. Right now, a high-level meeting was being held in the meeting room. The chief alchemist had already given strict orders that no one was allowed to enter. Just now, the matter of Ani Hong Ruo entering was something that the assistant had already arranged. They didn't know how to explain this to the chief alchemist. If they allowed this young assistant in, they feared that it would be understood that they were completely standing on the side of the miss. That would be troublesome. The guard captain had no expression. The meeting is in progress. No one is allowed to disturb us. If you want to see the miss, then wait here. As expected, if they don't open the door for me, the young maid instinctively panicked. But this matter couldn't be delayed. She clenched her teeth. How insolent! Who do you think you are that you dare to block my way? If you delay this important matter, just how many heads do you have? Ah, I never thought that I would have such an awe-inspiring day. Although she was scared and shy, she felt extremely happy in her heart. The guard captain's complexion stiffened. He was immediately enraged. With his status, he was actually being shouted at by a maid. Even if she was someone close to the miss, she still didn't have the qualifications to do so. He stepped forwards, about to erupt in anger, but the young maid was faster than him. She approached him and coldly looked up at him. I will say it again. Immediately screw off. Otherwise, after today, none of you will have a good time. It was a bit addictive. Indeed, what the second miss said was right. Women should be a bit more domineering. The young maid felt as if she had found her rhythm. She fiercely stuck out her chest, frightening the guard captain. He instinctively moved away, a cold sweat covering his forehead. He suddenly remembered that this young maid was someone close to the miss. If he really bumped into her, and she falsely accused him of taking liberties with her, or even said that she harbored ill intentions towards the miss, then things would become much more serious. Looking at the sneering maid in front of him, the guard captain's heart turned even colder. This woman's thoughts were truly vicious. Screw off! Seeing that the guard captain was afraid, the young maid's momentum erupted. She took 2 steps forwards and kicked the meeting room's doors. Bang! The 2 luxurious and exquisite doors that shined with a brilliant light were sent flying backwards. They crashed to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Chapter 297. The guards behind her stiffened. Their eyes widened as they stared at the young maid, as if they were looking at a fairy tale. Cold sweat dripped down the forehead of the vexed guard commander. He thought to himself, just who is this person? How could he be so ferocious? Luckily, he hadn't tried to stop her. Otherwise, he had no idea just how miserable he would have been. In the meeting room, the Lord Chief Alchemist, who had spoken out with a murderous aura and wanted Auntie Hong to enter the cave of eternal cold, was scared witless. His intimidating aura was suddenly cut into a mess. He was stunned for a moment, and then his eyes turned red. Today, he had originally wanted to seize the young miss and divide her authority, but Hong Ruo had ruined his plans. Now he wanted to use her to establish his might and let everyone know that he, Jin Cheng, wasn't someone to be provoked. Anyone who provoked him would have to pay an unbearable price. But even this wasn't done well. Just as his voice fell and he was about to take on everyone's looks of fear and awe, he was interrupted by a loud bang. Moreover, damn it, the meeting room's doors had been kicked down by someone. Today's meeting had been convened by him. So wasn't this the same as directly stepping on his face? You bastard! Where did this little girl come from? Drag her away and beat her to death. The young maid regained her composure. Her overwhelming momentum vanished in the blink of an eye. She curled her lips, and tears began to flow down her cheeks. Seeing that the guards behind her were really about to capture her, she screamed and rushed in. "Miss, save me!" This scene caused a guard commander who was about to order his men to stagger and almost fall to the ground. When he raised his head again, his eyes were already brimming with tears. "You little girl, you sure know how to put on a good show." The assistant paled and glared at the young maid. Just as the matter was about to be settled and the storm was about to dissipate, this little wench had decided to butt in and cause such a ruckus? How could that dog Jean Ching miss out on this chance? And indeed, the chief alchemist's voice echoed out. Is that the young Miss Maid? She is truly impressive. She even dared to kick down the meeting room's doors. Admirable, admirable. The other supervisors also had ugly complexions, although they didn't want to interfere in the struggle for power between the chief alchemist and the young miss. That didn't mean that they didn't have their own dignity, breaking the door and interrupting the meeting. This matter was indeed too despicable. Eldest miss, I didn't do it on purpose. I was just anxious. They stopped me and didn't let me in. The maid stammered. Her previous arrogance had completely vanished, and she was now like a quail. The commander of the guards, outside the door, felt his vision darken. He had a great reputation, yet he had been deceived by such a little girl. More importantly, she even dared to complain about him. Who stopped you? Who stopped you? You were the one who couldn't hold back and kicked the conference room door away. How can you blame me? Jean Chung sneered, anxious. I want to know what important matter a maidservant like you has that you dare to be so impudent. He stared at Lin Weiwei. Just a moment ago, the maid official spoke of disrespecting her superiors. My inn's rules are strict, and we naturally cannot tolerate this sort of arrogant and disrespectful person. If this little maid cannot give a reasonable explanation, then she will enter the cave of eternal cold with Hong Ruo and dig up the ice-cold seed. Cave of eternal cold, the maid gasped for breath. Her vision darkened. Eldest miss, save me, save me. I don't want to go, I don't want to go. Her voice was pitiful, as if she were being ravaged by 17 to 18 men. On both sides of the conference table, the supervisors all frowned. They couldn't help but reveal a strange look in their eyes. There was nothing they could do about it. This voice, cough, cough, it was just too easy for one to think of wrong things. The assistant's eyebrows shot up. She shouted, "Shut up!" Her body shivered with anger. Composure, poise, composure. Where were all these things that she had been taught in the past? Had they been fed to the dogs? Speak, what is it? The shadow of her youth gushed out. The maid was so frightened that she forgot all fear. She screamed out, "Mr. Qin refined the divine blood pill." Her voice was sharp and fast, so loud that it hurt everyone's eardrums. But no one cared about this at this time. Everyone's eyes widened with shock. The assistant subconsciously stepped forwards. "Say that again." The maid shrank back. "Ah, Mr. Qin refined the divine blood pill." The chief alchemist's complexion changed. He didn't believe that this maid would dare to speak such nonsense. If this was true, then after this matter, Lin Weiwei's status would be as solid as a mountain, impossible to shake. The entire conference room fell deathly silent. At this time, no one remembered something as trivial as kicking down the door. Everyone's mind was filled with a single thought. The divine blood pill had been refined. It had actually been refined. The assistant revealed a rare look of excitement. She turned and said, "Miss." Lin Weiwei's eyes were also filled with astonishment. Then she revealed a bit of gratification. She lightly said, "Tsong Tsong, take out the divine blood pill and hand it over to the chief alchemist to appraise." The maid blinked her eyes. It seemed that no one was mentioning her own mistakes anymore. She happily nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. She took out a jade bottle and placed it on the table before quickly drawing back to the side. As the chief alchemist of the inn, he naturally had the greatest authority when it came to appraising pills. Jean Qing took a deep breath. He flicked his sleeves and took the jade bottle. He opened the cork and looked down. His face was startled for a moment before turning into a sneer. He looked at the maid and said, "Cheap maid, how bold of you! You actually dare to joke around with us?" This time, even if the miss spoke up, she wouldn't be able to protect you. He threw the jade bottle back on the table. "Everyone, come take a look. This is the divine blood pill that was refined." The inn operated a brothel and a pill business. The alchemists might not have high attainments in alchemy, but they still had good eyesight. At this time, one of them took the jade bottle and looked down for a long time. His face darkened. This doesn't seem to be the divine blood pill. Another manager received the bottle. After several breaths of time, he nodded. Although it is somewhat similar, it isn't. The color is scarlet, and the smell is fragrant with a touch of blood mixed in. The color is warm and moist, and one can feel the phantom of the rules around it. Although the shape of this pill isn't ordinary, it only has the appearance. It doesn't have any of the mysteries of the divine blood pill. What a good Mr. Cheen, he actually dares to use a fake divine blood pill to deceive us. This is simply a great crime. This is bad. Could it be that this person knows that he will be severely punished, so he tricked this stupid maid to take advantage of this chance to escape? Jean Cheng sneered again and again. It's fine if this maid is stupid, but I'm only worried that someone is biased towards Mr. Cheen and deliberately did this to him so that he can live. No one dared to respond to these words. Within the inn, it seemed that the only one who had the qualifications to order around this maid was the miss. Moreover, it was rumored that the miss and this Mr. Cheen were somewhat related. The maid didn't know that the situation would reverse like this. She fell to her knees. Miss, I don't dare to lie. It was Mr. Cheen who told me that he had already refined the divine blood pill. He told me to take the pill and hurry to save Auntie Hong. Miss, I really didn't lie. Lin Weiwei furrowed her eyebrows. Bring the pill over. The assistant had a gloomy expression. She stepped forwards to retrieve the pill. Lin Weiwei took it and looked at it several times. She sighed inwardly. It was indeed different from what was recorded. But in her mind, that calm and composed face subconsciously appeared. Although she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, there were still some ripples in the lake of her heart. After a long period of silence, she slowly said, Tsong Tsong, did Mr. Cheen really say that he refined the divine blood pill? Was it the one he gave you? The maid nodded again and again. Yes, this is the one that Mr. Cheen gave me. Jean Cheng's complexion darkened. Miss, could it be that you still want to defend them? Lin Weiwei thought for a moment. She seriously looked at it several times and then shook her head. I have no such intentions, and there is no need for that either. This is because I believe that this is the true divine blood pill. Whoosh! The meeting room was in an uproar. The miss actually said that this was a god. Blood. Pill. Some people that weren't close to Jean Chung to begin with, and some even faintly stood on her side, couldn't help but frown, a look of displeasure on their faces. That's right, the inn was indeed a business of the Lin family. Since the young master wasn't here, the miss was the one in charge. But even so, how could you not distinguish between black and white and call a deer a horse? Do you really think we are all blind and deaf? Jean Cheng's complexion didn't change, but joy gushed out in her heart. She never thought that the intelligent miss would actually lose her sense of propriety in this matter. But as she thought about how this matter involved Qin Yu, this joy suddenly turned into an endless chill. Miss, are you certain that this is the divine blood pill? Her voice was calm, but the anger and coldness in it nearly froze space. I ask Miss to understand that this pill was not refined by my inn, but a trap laid down by Philosophy Watch. The divine blood pill must be delivered to them. Then, everyone's complexions changed in the meeting room. Calling a deer a horse was fine, but if this pill was delivered to Philosophy Watch, how could they possibly miss out on such a good opportunity? They would surely launch a fierce attack on the inn. They could even imagine the title in their minds. The inn reneged, passing off an unknown pill as a divine blood pill. They had eyes but couldn't see, unable to distinguish between the true and the false. The inn should close down as soon as possible to avoid harming all sides. Using a fake divine blood pill to evade responsibility, the inn's actions left everyone cold. A manager fiercely stood up. Miss, please wake up. Don't keep making mistakes. That's right. If the refining of the divine blood pill fails, although the inn will be in trouble, there is still room for redemption. If you really do this, then our inn's reputation will be completely ruined. Since the young master isn't here, we must protect our foundation. I hope that Miss won't be so stubborn. Jean Ching had a solemn expression. He cupped his hands together and bowed. I ask Miss to prioritize the inn's foundation. Walala. On both sides of the long table, all the managers stood up and cupped their hands together. I ask Miss to prioritize the inn's foundation. The young maid's mouth fell open. Her eyes widened as she looked at the scene in front of her. Her mind was in chaos, as if it had turned into paste. How could things be like this? Mr. Chin was lying. He really wanted to take this chance to run away, but Ani Hong already said that she would let him go. Why did he do this? Did he not know that this would harm the miss? The assistant's face darkened. The situation had actually deteriorated to the point where all the managers were standing against the miss. This far surpassed her expectations. Damn it, Chinyu, you deserve to die. She absolutely could not allow the situation to worsen. Otherwise, the miss's authority would be lost. In the future, she might even be rejected and forced to approach the center of power once more. Chapter 298. Ani Hong was startled. She didn't think that the miss would mention this at this time. She hesitated for a moment and then shook her head. At the time, I only chose to believe him because I had no other choice. Even if there was a 1 in 10,000 chance, I still had to try. Lin Weiwei smiled. Her personality was cold and indifferent. Now that she suddenly revealed a smile, even though it was covered by a veil, one could still feel her soul-stirring beauty. That's right. I never thought that I would be able to survive. She paused for a moment and then continued to say, So, Auntie Hong, do you think he is someone who would lie? The assistant's eyes widened. But before she could speak, Lin Weiwei turned and glanced at her. Just a single glance caused her heart to shake. All words were stuck in her throat, and she couldn't say a single word more. Auntie Hong's eyes widened, gradually revealing admiration. She was truly worthy of being the miss. She actually had such courage. She smiled. I also think that Mr. Chin is a trustworthy person. We think the same. Lin Weiwei swept her eyes around the meeting room. So, I believe that this is the divine blood pill. Jean Cheng's eyes were gloomy, as if he could eat someone alive. He clenched his teeth. Miss, do you know what you are saying right now? Do you really want to destroy the inn? Lin Weiwei rose to her feet. The calmness, gentleness, and gentleness on her body were gone, replaced by a dignified, domineering, and powerful aura. It was like a mountain weighing down on everyone's hearts. She lifted her hand. A bright light flashed, and a token appeared in her hand. Before Big Brother left, he gave this token to me. He said that no matter how big or small the inn is, he could make decisions by himself. Since everyone is here, can you tell me whether or not this is true? The complexions of the people in charge around the long table changed. They all bowed together. The token is the same as the person. We greet the young master. The chief alchemist paled, but at this time he had no choice but to follow everyone in bowing. Lin Weiwei had a faint expression. It looks like Big Brother didn't lie to me. Then, tell Philosophy Watch that the divine blood pill they want has already been refined. Jean Ching fiercely looked up. Miss, do you know the consequences of this? Lin Weiwei coldly interrupted him. Do as I say. She turned and walked out. The assistant, Song Tsong, Auntie Hong, and the others quickly followed. At this time, no one had any thoughts of punishing them. The inn was facing a situation of life and death. Without the divine blood pill, he had to say that he had finished refining it and then deliver it to Philosophy Watch. That was the same as handing over his life. The faces of the people in charge turned pale. Their eyes were filled with bitterness and helplessness. Could it be that a woman who had fallen in love would really become so stupid and reckless? Chief, what should we do? If we really hand it over to Philosophy Watch, Then things will go out of control. Don't tell me we are going to watch the inn's great foundation be destroyed just like that. Jean Cheng's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Young master gave me the token, so what can I do? Forget it. Let's see how this farce ends. He flicked his sleeves and left. The female attendant's expression was extremely ugly. She gritted her teeth and said, "Miss, please take back your order." He straightened his back and knelt down. Lin Weiwei laid down her book, her eyes light. "You also think that I did this to protect Qinyu?" The assistant knelt down, remaining silent, but sometimes silence was an answer. Lin Weiwei said in a soft voice, "If anyone likes him, it is my second sister who likes him. It has nothing to do with me, so what you think is wrong. Although I don't like power, it is impossible for me to destroy everything that my big brother has painstakingly built. That pill is unusual. At the very least, compared to what those people in the meeting room saw, it is far more formidable." The assistant looked up, a look of pleasant surprise on her face. "Miss, are you saying that pill, it really is?" Lin Weiwei shook her head. "I cannot be sure." The assistant was stunned. Auntie Hong revealed a look of guilt. "Miss did this to save me and Song Song. Otherwise you wouldn't have taken such a risk." Lin Weiwei didn't reply. She only asked herself, was this really the case? Perhaps there were these reasons, but what appeared in her mind was that person's calm appearance. The inn announced that the divine blood pill had been refined and would be delivered as scheduled. As this news spread out, there was an immediate uproar. It became the most explosive news on the handphone network, leaving countless cultivators dumbfounded. The inn has successfully refined the divine blood pill. Holy shit, is this real or fake? How come I feel that this isn't reliable at all? That's right, there was news just now that the inn failed to refine the pill. How could it be reversed in the blink of an eye? I don't believe it. I refuse to believe it. Amidst the clamor of questions, an unknown piece of news spread out, instantly igniting the restlessness. The inn had failed to refine the pill, so they replaced it with an unknown pill in an attempt to bluff their way through. As long as one had a brain, they definitely wouldn't believe this news. What was the inn doing? Didn't they know that as long as others weren't blind, they could see through this? And even if they couldn't see through it, they should be able to find out after eating it, right? But this news was accompanied by several high-definition pictures. It was said that the inn's headquarters in Waterfall City had been taken during a meeting today. One could see the gate that had been kicked down, the chief alchemist Jean Cheng's dark complexion, and the panic and helplessness in the eyes of the many supervisors. At the end of the news, it was pointed out that there was an important figure in the inn that had an ambiguous relationship with alchemist number 19. Thus, he had to be protected at all costs. All right, this really was going to be lively. It was said that within the inn, there was a mysterious young miss who wielded great authority. In addition to this news, there was no need to say anything else. This was a girl from a wealthy family that was willing to risk everything for love. In other words, the pill that the inn had delivered this time was a complete lie. Haha, how lively, how lively, how lively. After dozens of senior alchemists from Philosophy Watch had carefully appraised the pill, they all agreed that the so-called divine blood pill that the inn had delivered to them was nothing more than fake goods. Ha 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 ha. The heavens are helping me. The heavens are really helping me. The purple-robed elder had an excited expression, as if he hadn't been prepared for the pleasant surprise that had come too quickly. This time, I will make sure that the inn's reputation is thoroughly swept to the ground. From now on, they will never have a chance to rise again. That little girl from the inn is willing to disregard everything for her lover. It's all thanks to her. After this matter, my Philosophy Watch will put up a plaque with the words "Peerless Good Man" written on it and gift it to that young miss from the inn. Haha, I like Brother Zhou's suggestion very much. However, I think that little girl is quite cunning. Perhaps she thought that after handing over the fake divine blood pill to us, she would no longer take responsibility for it. She might even bite back and say that we switched the pills to frame the inn. But she never imagined that from the moment we received the pills, we have been recording everything without any tricks at all. The purple-robed elder had a smug expression. He pretended to be calm and said, "That little girl's schemes are nothing more than child's play in front of me." Someone stood up and cupped their hands together. "Elder, then should we immediately contact the Weather Talk program team and have them appraise this divine blood pill?" The purple-robed elder waved his hand. "I have another idea. If the pill appraisers are all our own people, then I fear we won't be able to convince everyone. So, tell the Weather Talk program team and have them invite the inn's alchemists to appraise it together with us." Everyone's eyes brightened, and they all revealed looks of praise. This was truly an elder. He was truly fierce. This is simply slapping them in the face. Have the inn's people deny their own pills? If they really dare to deny it, then with the recording in our hands, we can send the inn into the abyss of eternal damnation. Elder Nangong's strategy is truly admirable. Amidst the flattery, the purple-robed elder flicked his sleeves. "Don't forget we must sincerely invite them, especially that chief alchemist." Soon, the Weather Talk program team began to move. In the next episode, they would publicly appraise the divine blood pill and post a list of the several alchemy grandmasters participating in the appraisal. Although there were people from Philosophy Watch, there were also publicly recognized alchemy masters. Their credibility was high. Following that, the Weather Talk program team sent out another notice. They would invite the inn's alchemists to participate in the appraisal. The reason for this was that they hoped that the inn wouldn't hesitate to share the process of refining the divine blood pill. Of course, this was nonsense. The entire internet network was in an uproar. Countless cultivators vowed that the inn would be slapped in the face this time. Moreover, they would be slapped left and right without end. Today's Weather Talk program had never been as popular as it was today. Although there was still a long time until the broadcast, countless people had already tuned in, waiting for the great show to begin. Waterfall City, in a hastily convened meeting of directors, everyone had incomparably gloomy expressions, their eyes full of bitterness. After all these twists and turns, it was clear that there was a master standing behind Philosophy Watch, and their methods were swift and fierce. Today's Weather Talk program was to appraise the divine blood pill together. What was there to appraise? As long as one wasn't blind, they could see that it was fake with just a few glances. If this were normal times, everyone would have already racked their brains for this chance to appear on stage to increase their exposure and fame. But today, all of them shrunk back, not saying a single word. If they went, that would be a disgrace. The meeting room was deathly silent. The chief alchemist took a deep breath. The Weather Talk program team has already sent an official invitation to the inn. If we don't go, we will lose our best chance to refute them and allow Philosophy Watch to trample on the inn's reputation. Thus, I have decided to accept the invitation. Even if I know that this will be extremely shameful and that I will be humiliated and spurned, as the chief alchemist, I must protect the inn's reputation and interests. I will not retreat even half a step. His words were filled with righteousness and dignity. On both sides of the table, everyone was ashamed and then filled with awe. I am willing to follow the chief alchemist. This matter is my inn's fault, but we still need to explain it to the people of the world. If we lose face, then we lose face. We can't allow those shameless fellows from Philosophy Watch to wantonly slander my inn. I am willing to advance and retreat with the chief alchemist. The chief alchemist had an excited expression. Good, then let us go together and lose face in front of everyone. At this moment, he was the center of everyone's trust. Lin Weiwei laid down her scroll. She thought for a moment and said, "Have Mr. Qin go with us. In matters like appraising pills, he naturally has the greatest right to speak." The assistant respectfully bowed and drew back. She coldly glared at Auntie Hong. "Go and tell that surnamed Qin that if there is a mistake, I will not let him off." Auntie Hong sighed inwardly. To make such a threat without any regard for face, It seemed that this woman's heart was in chaos. She bowed and turned to leave. Soon, she stepped into the transmission array and vanished from sight. Qin Yu didn't run away. After handing over the divine blood pill, he returned to his courtyard to rest. When he had nothing to do, he would take out his handphone and connect to the beast hunting battalion network. Naturally, he learned of the current uproar of news. When Auntie Hong arrived, he had put down his handphone and was about to take a sip of tea. As for the doubts and spittle online, he didn't care at all. If he didn't even have this bit of breadth of mind, then what was the point of cultivating the Tao? He might as well cut his own throat and enter samsara. Congratulations, Auntie Hong, on successfully escaping danger. He smiled and gestured for her to take another cup of tea. I don't have a heart as big as yours. Auntie Hong bitterly smiled. She sat down and picked up the teacup, taking a sip. I came to pass on a message. I hope that when the pill is appraised, Mr. Qin can appear. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. That miss from the inn, is it her? Auntie Hong nodded. News was flying everywhere on the internet, so there wasn't much to hide. All right, I agree. Auntie Hong's eyebrows arched up, a bit of surprise on her face, but deep in her heart, she let out a long breath. Chapter 299. Today's talk about the weather. Since it was about the weather, it naturally had to be broadcast every day. But this program was a bit different. Every 7 days, there would be an official program where famous figures were invited to comment on the world's great events. Because their arguments were sharp and brilliant, the program gradually became popular. As for this program, it was today. There was still an hour before the program's broadcast, but the viewership ratings kept rising like a rising dragon. This made everyone in the program team smile and rub their palms together, ready to go all out. Philosophy Watch. Today is the day when the inn will be overthrown and the days of glory will be returned to us. Everyone, you must do your best to thoroughly expose their true colors. Once we return victorious, I will personally go to the sect to ask for your merits. As the purple-robed elder spoke, he waved his hand. Let's go! The transmission array suddenly lit up. The figure that was shrouded in the array distorted and vanished from sight. Waterfall City. Behind the chief alchemist, there were dozens of people standing. Within the inn, none of them had a low status. They were willing to follow the chief alchemist and endure the humiliation together. The atmosphere was silent. An unwilling, angry, and gloomy aura was brewing in the crowd. Jean Chung believed that as long as he could show that he was willing to endure the humiliation and protect the inn at all costs, all of these suppressed emotions would transform into worship and trust in him. At that time, he would be able to truly wield power. Everyone, our only goal today is to protect the inn's reputation to the greatest degree possible. No matter what price we have to pay, we must make the world understand that my inn cannot be humiliated. Yes. The chief alchemist's footsteps were heavy. He was the first to step into the transmission array. He maintained his solemn and dignified aura, so he didn't notice the black-robed man in the crowd. Qin Yu felt a faint pulling sensation around him. Everything in front of him turned black. A moment later, it lit up again, and he found himself standing in an extraordinarily decorated hall. There were people waiting outside the array formation. Everyone from the inn has come from afar. My program team cannot thank you enough. Please rest for a moment. The program will soon begin broadcasting. A bald, middle-aged man spoke with a warm and amiable expression. He passed over a jade slip. This is the program schedule. Everyone, familiarize yourselves with it. We will bid our farewells first. He seemed very polite, but he didn't even ask for their names or introduce himself. This in itself was the greatest form of arrogance and neglect. This was also normal. Philosophy Watch was one of the biggest sponsors of today's weather discussion program. Moreover, the situation today was already clear. The inn was about to face a calamity, so who would have the time to bother with these people? The chief alchemist lifted a hand, suppressing the anger of everyone behind him. Don't cause any more trouble. Let's rest." He sighed softly and looked at the sunlight outside the window at a 45-degree angle. He was the embodiment of melancholy and deep. As of this moment, anyone could sense the helplessness and pain in the chief alchemist's heart. Behind him, the other alchemists all had pained looks in their eyes. That was especially true of some of the female cultivators, whose eyes were red and began to sob. Qin Yu rolled his eyes. These people seemed to have no confidence in me at all. He had clearly given the divine blood pill to them, and yet they still acted like this. You don't even know how to appraise pills. So what's the point of being the chief disciple? Hurry up and give up your position. That's right, Mr. Qin was extremely dissatisfied with the chief alchemist. This was because Auntie Hong had already said it. He had to admit that his breadth of mind was not bad, but they had never met before, and he had already attacked him several times. Wasn't that too much of a bully? Qin Yu curled his lips and closed his eyes. The fun was yet to come. The door was pushed open from the outside, and a cultivator from the program team walked in. "Everyone from the inn, the program is about to begin. Please follow me." Jean Cheng was the first to walk in. His steps were slow and heavy, his complexion solemn. Behind him, the people from the inn also looked as if they were facing death with equanimity. There was actually a bit of a tragic atmosphere around them. The program team, cultivator, shrunk his neck, a cold chill running down his back. He thought that these people from the inn wouldn't do something they shouldn't do in their desperation, right? No, this isn't good. I have to immediately notify the director and the higher-ups of the station so that they can gather security personnel just in case. Trembling with fear, he led the people from the inn to the live broadcast studio. The program team, cultivator, squeezed out a smile. "It's here. Everyone, please enter." As he watched the inn's cultivators enter, a black-robed cultivator suddenly appeared in his eyes. The program team, cultivator stiffened, and a horrifying thought appeared in his mind. This was a thug that the inn had invited. Yes, that must be it. Perhaps beneath those black robes was an incomparably fierce and ferocious face, one that looked as if it was about to swallow someone whole. Or perhaps there were dozens of monster beast cores tied to his body, and he was waiting for the recording of the program to detonate them all to take down his opponent with him. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead. His robes were soaked and stuck to his body, causing him to subconsciously twist his body. "I can't delay any longer. I have to report this right now, immediately." At this time, the black-robed fellow suddenly stopped, and his eyes fell onto the program team cultivator. At this moment, the program team cultivator's heart nearly stopped beating. There was only one thought that rumbled in his mind. Damn, did he discover me? What should I do? Should I take the initiative or play dumb? What if he does something to me before he could finish his chaotic thoughts? The black-robed fellow looked away and stepped into the live broadcast studio. At this moment, the feeling of surviving a calamity filled the program team cultivator's heart. He nearly cried and ran away without hesitation. Qin Yu frowned. Qin Yu frowned and turned his head to look behind him. He thought that the cultivators from the program team were really strange. Was there something wrong with their brains? Thus, when the live broadcast studio was filled with security guards, the instigator sighed inwardly. Although this program team cultivator was a bit strange, their protective measures were quite good. The live broadcast studio made some changes. There were 2 seats facing each other. As the inside sat down, the opposite door opened and a massive number of cultivators rushed in. The one leading them was the purple-robed elder of Philosophy Watch. His eyes fell on the chief alchemist, and he strangely laughed. "Jin Cheng, it's been many years since we last met, but you're still as elegant as ever." His words were filled with ridicule. The chief alchemist's face darkened. "Nangong, what happened this time? Was it your method?" The purple-robed elder laughed. "I only started things off. How could I have imagined that you would all be so cooperative? To tell the truth, please don't laugh at me, but this has far surpassed my expectations." Behind him, The people from Philosophy Watch all began to laugh. A black-robed, skinny old man with a zombie-like face laughed out loud. I have already seen that divine blood pill. I truly admire your standards. The faces of the people from the inn flushed red, and their eyes nearly spat out flames. They gnashed their teeth together, their hearts filled with grief and indignation. The people from Philosophy Watch weren't wrong. With things having developed to this step, the ones who had truly contributed weren't them. Resentment rose from the bottom of their hearts, causing everyone's complexions to become increasingly ugly. The chief alchemist shouted out, "Philosophy Watch, don't go too far. Do you really think that my inn is something you can do as you please?" He angrily shouted out with a bit of momentum. The mocking laughter from the other side was immediately interrupted. Elder Nangong lifted a hand. "That's enough. The show hasn't started yet. Save your energy, and we'll slowly watch. Alchemist Sue, I'll have to trouble you with the appraisal." He proudly smiled and led his people to sit down across from him. The zombie-like old Sue coldly sneered. "Elder, rest assured that I will judge impartially." Before the live broadcast even began, the smell of gunpowder was already thick and pungent. The leaders of the station were secretly happy, but at the same time they were also nervous. They quickly sent in a group of security guards. A moment later, as the lights were extinguished, only the stage was still bright. The host, Little Tan, walked forwards. After the usual opening remarks, he dived straight into the main topic. During this period of time, the internet has been abuzz with the matter of the Pill Commission, and now it has finally come to an end. Today, we will talk about the weather and specially invite the inn that refined the pill, as well as the famous pill merchant Philosophy Watch, to witness the appraisal of the divine blood pill. As his voice rang out, the cameras focused on the inn and Philosophy Watch's side, giving a close-up shot of them. And now, the countless cultivators that weren't present at the scene had already set off a frenzy on the internet. The live broadcast is finally starting. Ha ha ha! I've never seen such a great slap to the face before in my life. But I don't have any close female friends to enjoy it with me. This is truly one of my greatest regrets. The program team's people are really bad. They zoomed in on both sides, but looking at their expressions, the result should be obvious. The people at the inn look like their uncles have died. Their complexions are so ugly that it's scary. It looks like the rumors are true. There is a problem with this divine blood pill. The idiot above, if there isn't a problem, then why would Philosophy Watch waste so much effort just to promote their opponent? The first poster is right. I agree with your point of view about the slap. But if the avatar is you, then it's natural that you don't have any close female friends. You should stop thinking about such nonsense for the rest of your life. The first poster is indeed ugly. Waterfall City. Lin Weiwei was still reading a book. It was just that there were a few more people around her. Moreover, on the opposite wall, a giant crystal projector was on, and the image was incomparably clear. Now, let us invite the client. He will bring the divine blood pill and begin today's appraisal. Here, I would like to explain to everyone what the divine blood pill is, how precious it is, and how difficult it is to refine it. Little Tan's crisp voice rang out in the room. The assistant, Ani Hong, and Song Song all stared at him. No one spoke. Besides the light flipping of the pages, there was no other sound. Hiss! The young maid suddenly sucked in a deep breath, breaking this tranquility. She was immediately met with the assistant's vicious eyes and shrank back in fear. She said in an aggrieved voice, "My cultivation is too low. I can't compare with Auntie and Auntie Hong." Auntie Hong smiled. She took a deep breath and said, "It hasn't started yet. Shouldn't we relax a little?" Qin Yu's performance gave her a great deal of comfort, making her feel much more at ease. The assistant sneered. "If the appraisal results show that the divine blood pill is fake, then the two of you can form a team and go to the cave of eternal cold to dig up the icy cold seeds. At that time, you will have plenty of time to relax." These words, Auntie Hong bitterly smiled. The young maid paled in fear. In the live broadcast room, the client walked in. After a brief self-introduction, he placed the jade box in his hands in front of the camera. At this time, the chief alchemist's hand phone vibrated. He looked down and sighed inwardly. Philosophy, watch, had indeed been prepared for this long ago. It seemed they couldn't use this trick of denying it. He rubbed his temples, a weary expression on his face. An incultivator behind him slowly lowered his head. He knew that he didn't need to say anything else. Little Tan smiled and introduced. Today, in order to appraise the divine blood pill, we have invited the famous alchemist Wang Wei, the famous alchemist Su Xiao, the famous alchemist Zhou Qinghai, the famous pill appraiser Fang Ruohua, and the famous pill appraiser Xie Fang. We invite the 5 grandmasters to come on stage and begin the appraisal. Shua, after a flash of gorgeous lights, everyone gathered around the jade box. The 5 grandmasters walked out from the darkness, their auras thick. They washed their hands, put on silk gloves, and opened the head-mounted microscopes. The grandmaster's professionalism was fully displayed. Elder Nangon leaned back and changed into a more comfortable position. He smiled and said, "The show is about to begin." Qin Yu frowned. He swept his eyes around and saw that there were clearly more security guards than there were. He was puzzled by their covetous eyes. These people, why did it seem like they were guarding against wolves? As for the appraisal on stage, he didn't care about it at all. Without the little blue lamp, even if he saw through his eyes, he still wouldn't be able to see anything. If he already knew the result, then there was no longer any suspense. How could he possibly be interested? Suddenly, the whispers of 2 security guards behind him entered his ears. There are actually people who are betting on the refining the divine blood pill. Just how stupid are they? TSK, these odds are too exaggerated. Even I want to bet on it. If I happen to be lucky, I'll be rich. Then why don't you bet? What nonsense. I know I'll lose, but I'm not that stupid. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. Chapter 300. The 2 security guards stiffened, their hearts shaking. They thought that even though they were speaking in such a low voice, he could still hear them. Seeing Qin Yu reach into his chest, the 2 of them looked as if they were facing a great enemy. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. When a cultivator's aura was exposed, they could instantly sense it. One of the cameraman's hands shook, and he subconsciously took a picture. Thus, in a situation where Qin Yu was completely unaware, he was exposed to the eyes of countless people. There's actually a black-robed man. He's probably afraid of losing face, so he's wearing it. I didn't think that there would be someone at the inn who knows shame. It's not easy. What does this brother want to do? I'm really curious. At this time, he actually has the mind to greet the security guards. The director was so angry that his lips nearly twisted. Just as he was about to scold the cameraman, he blinked and saw what Qin Yu was holding in his hand. He subconsciously stopped himself from saying anything and instead smiled. Camera number 9, idiot, don't move. What are you running for? Continue filming. Zoom in. It's best if you can see what's on the phone screen. The 2 security guards looked at the handphone in front of them. They were stunned for a moment, but their expressions were still as solemn as before. Qin Yu saw that the appraisal was about to begin. He hurriedly said, "I need your help." As the 2 security guards were about to continue pretending to be wooden, the signal light on their headphones suddenly flashed. Surprise filled their eyes. One of them smiled and said, "No problem, I'll help you." He took the handphone. He leaned over so that the handphone was facing the camera in front of him. He skillfully entered the address and gently tapped it open. Immediately, the beautiful image of the spinning die was captured by the camera. Then, through the signal, it was transmitted to countless receiving terminals in the shortest possible time. Every cultivator that saw this couldn't help but widen their eyes in shock. Holy shit, what was going on? As a member of the inn, they had actually entered the largest gambling site before the appraisal began. There was no need to say anything more. Just this scene alone caused the imaginations of countless cultivators to roam. Complex plots began to form in their minds. In Miss Lin's study, several faces stiffened in front of the crystal projector. Even the faint sound of flipping pages came to an abrupt stop. The atmosphere was heavy to the point of dripping. Looking at the black-robed man nodding in thanks on the screen, a cold chill seemed to penetrate into their hearts, making them feel as if they had fallen into an icy lake. Others might not know who this black-robed man was, but they naturally knew. This was the fellow who had refined the divine blood pill. Now, before the appraisal began, the person who refined the divine blood pill had opened up a gambling site. Anyone who thought of this would find it strange and feel restless. The assistant clenched her teeth. She knew. She felt that she had already seen through everything. Spy, he's a spy. It turned out that all of this, from start to finish, had been a trap arranged by someone else. His gaze fell on the young miss, revealing a deep sorrow. Could it be that even now you still haven't woken up? Andi Hong's complexion paled and her eyes widened. The young maid beside her bit her lips, her body wavering. Thank you. Qin Yu took back his phone. All that was left on the screen was his head lowered as he fiddled with the camera. At this moment, the director revealed an incomparably smug smile. How to make a show interesting wasn't entirely on stage. The details off stage were equally important. He was confident that this small detail that he had deliberately left out would become one of the most exciting parts of the entire show. He thanked Andi Hong and Song Song. One had given him a salary, and the other had taught him how to use the internet to pay. Qin Yu emptied his balance and placed all of his spirit stones into a bet. Then he suddenly remembered what Song Song had said. With his status, he had the qualifications to borrow an interest-free loan from the inn. Then what was he waiting for? The chance to make a fortune was right in front of him. If he hesitated even the slightest bit, he would miss this great opportunity. With a series of clicks and clicks, he looked at his empty balance. Suddenly, 200,000 spirit stones appeared. Qin Yu didn't even have time to sigh over the inn's wealth before he placed all of these 200,000 spirit stones into a bet. What nonsense! If he didn't do something where he knew the result was the same as stealing money, then he would be an idiot. Golden Dice was a large-scale online gambling organization. From the highest heavens to the 10 earths, from flying to swimming, from eating to drinking to urinating and defecating, there was nothing they didn't gamble on. They had even opened a bet on the durability of a certain public figure's sexual intercourse. Through some unknown method, they had managed to capture a high-definition and censored video of them in bed, causing a massive sensation. Such a boring, or perhaps powerful, gambling organization naturally wouldn't miss out on the hottest pill commission. After the news of the pill appraisal was confirmed, they opened a bet. Was the divine blood pill real or fake? In a short period of time, it attracted a massive amount of bets. 2 bets totaled 230,000 spirit stones. This wasn't a small number, especially in this sort of public bet. Moreover, these 230,000 spirit stones were all bet on the authenticity of the divine blood pill. The person in charge soon obtained the news. After a brief calculation, and according to the exaggerated odds, he calculated that if he won this bet, then the 230,000 spirit stones would become nearly 6 million. Investigate. Where did this bet come from? Who placed the bet? Those that had just learned how to pay online naturally wouldn't understand what it meant to hide one's address or identity. They would be easily locked down. The person in charge frowned. They had opened a work verification account. Could it be? He hesitated for a moment and then said, "Increase the odds of the divine blood pill being fake by 0. 0 too. Boss, if we do this, then we'll lose a great deal." With these 230,000 spirit stones as a foundation, even if we lose a great deal, it won't be much. But if we lose, do you understand? Boss is wise. The golden dice suggested the odds and immediately caused a small stir. Although the odds of 0 too wasn't much, if one invested a great deal of spirit stones, they could still make a considerable profit. For a time, the amount of bets on the betting table rose by a small wave. Auntie Hong felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She looked at her handphone and received a text message, her mind falling into an eternal night. The assistant coldly said, "What happened?" Auntie Hong's lips trembled. Just now, Qinyu used his alchemist status to borrow 200,000 spirit stones. What? The assistant's complexion changed. If she had only suspected at the start, now she was certain. In the live broadcast, Qinyu had found a gambling site, and now he had suddenly borrowed 200,000 spirit stones. Was there anything else to say? That bastard. I will definitely kill him. Lin Weiwei's expression was the same as before. Blue veins protruded from the palm that gripped the bamboo slip. It was clear that deep within her heart, she wasn't as calm as she appeared. Qinyu, could it be that I really misjudged you? Did I really believe you? Live broadcast studio. The appraisal results had already appeared. 3 alchemy grandmasters and 2 pill appraisers had reached the same conclusion. The effects of this pill were unknown. Although there were similarities, it was absolutely not the divine blood pill. On the network, there was an uproar. Haha, I knew it. It really was fake. Where did the inn get their confidence from? They actually dared to pass off fish eyes as pearls. Aren't they afraid of being played to death? This time they really are going to die. Women really can't be the head of a household. If they are the head of a household, then they are doomed. Upstairs, are you discriminating against women? My Women's Rights and Interests Committee's 800 members have already started to search you. Don't go off topic. I feel like the climax hasn't arrived yet. The people from the inn are also in the live broadcast studio. Perhaps they have an objection to this result? In just a few seconds, this comment received thousands of likes, indicating that they all thought the same. Elder Nangong didn't disappoint anyone. He stood up, a solemn expression on his dignified face. I am Philosophy Watch's Elder Nangong. I was invited to participate in the live broadcast today. Since I am here, I must say a few words of fairness. Although the 5 of you fellow Taoists have been immersed in alchemy for many years, and your attainments are deep, the inn is not ordinary. Since they announce that they have completed the refinement, perhaps they have their own reasons, or perhaps they used some secret alchemy technique that you and I do not know of. I have a great deal of admiration and trust in the inn's strength. Thus, I propose that we allow the inn's alchemists to confirm this and see how they explain it. Of course, I have no intention of looking down on your specialties, so I ask that the 5 fellow Taoists don't take offense. At this moment, whether it was in the live broadcast studio or outside the various receiving terminals, countless cultivators praised in their hearts. This Elder Nangong's methods were truly sharp and incisive. When these words were spoken, it seemed like a compliment, but it actually caused the inn to fall miserably in the end. More importantly, it would be a slap to its own face. TSK, TSK, fierce, fierce. Jean Cheng's complexion paled. He swept his eyes over the 5 people on stage. Besides old Sue, who was closely related to Philosophy Watch, although the other 4 had calm expressions, a cold intent flowed in their eyes. It was clear that if they really wanted to argue, that would be questioning their standards in front of everyone and smashing their rice bowls that allowed them to survive. That old bastard Nangong, what a meticulous mind! With a deep breath, the chief alchemist stood up and faced the cameras. After several breaths of silence, he said, I acknowledge the appraisal results of the 5 fellow Taoists. This divine blood pill is fake. His complexion paled and his body shivered. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and helplessness, and there was even a faint glimmer at the corners of his eyes. At this moment, everyone could feel the pain and helplessness in the chief alchemist's heart. His lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he only sighed. This sigh caused the eyes of the people behind him to turn red. Their faces were filled with incomparable pain as well as deep anger. At this time, whether it was on the network or in front of the receiving terminals, all of the cultivators were stunned, unable to bear the sight. It seemed as if the inn had some hidden trouble that they couldn't speak of. The chief alchemist's heart was filled with excitement. He had already pulled the situation into his own rhythm. Now it was time for him to show off. Tears finally flowed down his face, sliding down his firm face. He opened his mouth and said, "Miss, you really were wrong." As he thought of that cold and beautiful face, the chief alchemist's mood was complex. He didn't want to hurt Lin Weiwei, but at this time he had no other choice. This was the best chance to minimize the inn's losses while simultaneously taking away her authority and establishing a stable position for himself. "Weiwei, don't blame me. I will make it up to you in the future." At this time, a cold sneer interrupted the chief alchemist's thoughts. The words that he had been preparing for a long time, the words that were filled with emotion, were stuck in his throat. Chapter 301. Jean Cheng stood up and announced that the divine blood pill was fake. In the crowd, the black-robed figure didn't move at all. In Ani Hong's eyes, the last glimmer of light vanished. All that was left over was endless darkness. The young maid cried out, tears and snot flying everywhere. But at this time, the assistant didn't have the mind to pay any more attention to her. She looked at the miss, her eyes filled with love and also an incomparably deep chill. This chill was naturally directed at Qin Yu. Did he really think that after harming the miss, he could still continue living? Bastard, whether it was in the heavens above or the earth below, he was dead. Lin Weiwei laid down her book and walked towards the inner chamber. Her expression was calm and her eyes were indifferent. But compared to before, this indifference was a bit colder and a bit more bitter. "Qin Yu, I was blind to have misjudged you. After today, the graciousness I owe you will be written off. Don't let me see you again." As the miss thoughts raced here, she had already reached the inner chamber's entrance. Behind her, the crystal projector suddenly sneered. "Who said that the divine blood pill is fake?" This voice, "Qin Yu." Lin Weiwei turned around, her eyes glued to the screen. As the camera turned, it fell onto the black-robed figure. In the live broadcast room, all eyes gathered on him. After a brief moment of astonishment and surprise, they turned into sneers and taunts. Elder Nangong's lips curled up. "Jean Cheng, it looks like your words don't count at all." The chief elder's face was filled with grief. After a moment of stunned silence, his eyes turned pitch black. He turned and glared at Qin Yu. If looks could kill, Qin Yu would already be riddled with holes. He angrily shouted, "Shut up and sit down." The chance he had painstakingly waited for had been destroyed right in front of his eyes. Jean Cheng hated this bastard to the point of wanting to kill someone. This bastard, just who was it that brought him here? He was finished, completely and utterly finished. Unfortunately, that black-robed fellow clearly didn't care much for the chief alchemist. If your level isn't high enough, then don't speak such nonsense. The divine blood pill is clearly here, don't you see it? The voice was calm without the least bit of mockery. But it was this calmness that caused one to go even crazier. The chief alchemist was stunned. Was this person mocking him in front of everyone? His face was ashen. "How dare you? Just who are you? How dare you sneak into my inn? Men, take him down and bring him back for interrogation." Old Jean was quite decisive. Seeing that the situation wasn't right, he immediately took action to prevent the storm from getting bigger. Unfortunately, there were still people in the live broadcast room who hoped that Qin Yu would continue speaking. It would be best if he completely tore apart the chief alchemist's face and threw it to the ground. "Hold on. I would like to hear this little friend's opinion." Elder Nangong smiled. As his voice fell, the security guards behind him quickly stepped forward, protecting Qin Yu. "Little friend, are you someone from the inn?" Qin Yu didn't answer. He simply took out a token and flashed it in front of the camera. The chief alchemist was so angry that his mouth almost twisted. It really was a cultivator from the inn. Just who was this bastard? Huh. Elder Nangong had an encouraging expression. Since little friend is a cultivator of the inn, You naturally have the qualifications to express your own opinion on the matter of the appraisal. However, your chief disciple has already admitted that the divine blood pill is fake, so there is no need to waste any more time. Beneath the black robes, the voice was indifferent. That is only his opinion. It does not represent the stance of the inn. Jean Chung stuffily coughed, nearly bursting with anger. He was about to roar out loud when he was interrupted by Elder Nangong. Good. Little friend, you are a straightforward person. Then tell me, why do you think this divine blood pill is real? The divine blood pill can help a cultivator perceive the rules of the world. Whether it is real or fake, as long as one eats it, the truth will be revealed. Why waste time on meaningless speculations? These words left all the cultivators watching on the receiving terminals startled. They immediately thought that this was reasonable. But when the same words fell into the ears of different people, they had completely different meanings. At the very least, it was grating to the ears of the 5 appraisal cultivators on stage. Waste time? Meaningless speculations? That was clearly them. If this wasn't slapping them in the face, what was? This was simply going too far. Grandmaster Su Xiao coldly sneered. What nonsense! This pill was taken out by the inn, and we simply don't know what it is or what effect it has. If we recklessly take it, who will bear the consequences? When it comes to alchemy, one must be extremely cautious. One cannot relax one's guard in the slightest. If your words are so absurd, then I wonder how you became an alchemist and how you joined the inn. Grandmaster Zhou Qinghai's words were overbearing. Xie Fengfang was a graceful woman. She slowly said, I just felt that this unknown pill contained een cold and ominous aura. I fear it isn't something good. Fang Minghua had a solemn expression. Indeed, my opinion is the same as fellow Taoists. There is definitely a problem with this pill. If one were to swallow it, there might be an accident. Since he dares to disrespect us, there is nothing to say. We will directly beat him up. What a young man who doesn't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. He hasn't eaten as much rice as we do, yet he dares to spout such nonsense. Let me show you what authority is. As expected, the host Little Tan hurriedly said, This pill cannot be eaten. Safety comes first. Elder Nangong waved his hand. Little friend, as you can see, it isn't that I don't agree with your opinion. But everyone thinks that this pill is far too dangerous. It is unknown what dangers there will be if one eats it. Beneath his black robes, Qin Yu's eyes flashed, revealing a bit of brightness. Elder Nangong said that you agree with what I want to do. It's just that you can't find a cultivator willing to test the pill, right? Elder Nangong subconsciously frowned. He felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't say what it was. He hesitated for a moment and said, That's right. Qin Yu smiled. Then I will test the pill. The live broadcast studio fell silent. The countless cultivators watching the live broadcast also froze in place. Just now, the 2 alchemy grandmasters and pill appraisers had clearly stated that the attribute of this pill was unknown and it was likely to contain dangers. If one ate it, there was an 80% chance that something would happen. Was this person crazy? He actually wanted to eat it on his own initiative? The network was instantly stirred up. Say, do you think this fellow is a die-hard follower of the inn? After eating it, no matter what happens, he will directly say that he felt the rules of the world? The first poster's words are reasonable. The first and second posters are all idiots. After eating the divine blood pill, the fluctuations of the world's rules will descend. As long as one isn't blind, they can see it, so how could he possibly speak such nonsense? Since ancient times, the truth has always come from the third poster. However, although the first poster is stupid, there is one thing that I think is correct. This boy is absolutely a die-hard follower. He is simply risking his life. What if the divine blood pill is real and no one can see it? The fourth poster's words are too touching. Why is it that our sect doesn't have someone like him who is willing to risk his life for the sake of the sect. I really envy him. The sixth poster has something to say. Although this black-robed little brother is a bit stupid, his character is excellent. Let us mourn for him in silence. Elder Nangong's complexion changed. He clearly didn't think Qin Yu would say such a thing. He hesitated for a moment. He only wanted to see Gold City lose even more face and the inn's reputation become even more ruined. Thus, he gave Qin Yu the chance to speak. Now that the overall situation had been decided, why cause more twists and turns? Cough, cough. Even if it was basically impossible, he still had to be careful. With a light cough, Elder Nangong prepared to put on a compassionate expression and stop Qin Yu from swallowing the pill. But before he could speak, he was interrupted by Jin Cheng. Good. It is this old man who has wronged you. Within my inn, there really are people with backbone. His eyes shined with a divine light, and his tone was filled with excitement. Since you believe that this pill is real, then feel free to eat it. If there is an accident, I will look after your family and juniors for you. He thought to himself, you bastard, aren't you arrogant? You want to show off? Fine, then I will help you. I will let you die a glorious death. If you want to retreat, then I won't give you the chance. The chief alchemist's thoughts were beautiful. Once this black-robed man died, then would immediately gain a great deal of sympathy. The opportunity that had been ruined would appear once more. At that time, all he needed to do was shed a few tears, and he would have a chance to reverse the tide and become the focus of everyone's attention. So, black-robed man, hurry up and eat it! Hurry up and eat it! Qin Yu's thoughts stirred, and he could guess what the chief alchemist was thinking. He couldn't help but sneer. This idiot was probably feeling smug, thinking that he had ruthlessly tricked him. But this assistance had come at the perfect time. Qin Yu strode towards the viewing platform. His tone was heavy. I am willing to personally try the pill and reveal the truth so that my inn's reputation can be restored. What a rare and honest person in this world. For the inn, he is willing to shed his blood and shed his life, even disregarding life and death. Woo-woo, this big brother is too touching. I worship him so much right now, so let him eat it. The little sister on the second floor, your thoughts are so strange. If you worship him, shouldn't you be saving him? Since ancient times, the third floor has always been filled with stupid pigs. How could someone as rotten as you know the thoughts of us 16-year-old beauties? Since personally trying the pill is this little brother's wish, we naturally have to help him achieve it. The third and fourth floors are all idiots, but there's one thing I think is good about them. If he wants to eat it, then let him eat it. Let him eat it. Vomit blood, split skin, explode body, ooze pus, whatever. I love watching that. I'm silently observing this pervert. Soon, a voice appeared and spread out at an astonishing speed, sweeping through the entire Weibo. Let the black-robed little brother try the pill. Elder Nangong looked down at the handphone the subordinate had handed to him. The surging emotions of the crowd caused his eyelids to jump up. He thought that these people were just here to watch the fun and weren't afraid of things escalating. At this time, if he were to refuse, he feared that it would create a bad influence. It might even cause people to question the authenticity of the entire appraisal. If the inn were to seize this opportunity, that would be troublesome. Clenching his teeth, Elder Nangong glared at Qin Yu. This brat was pleasing to the eye just now, but now he felt disgusted. If he wanted to die, then he would help him. On the stage, Elder Nangong glanced at the client and let out a long sigh. Since that's the case, I'll give you a chance to get what you asked for. The client immediately expressed that he was willing to let Qin Yu try the pill. Little Tan hurriedly said, Ladies and gentlemen, today's matter is completely voluntary and has nothing to do with this program. I ask that you immediately take away your underage children to avoid any psychological trauma. These words, Qin Yu couldn't help but glance at him. He thought that his mouth was really stinky. But, considering the divine blood pill he wouldn't bother with him. He took several steps forwards, moving like a gust of wind. He grabbed the divine blood pill and swallowed it down. On the forums, there was another round of sighs. Even when the black-robed little brother was facing death, he was still as swift as the wind. With such mental fortitude, he will surely have great achievements in the future. What a pity, what a pity! Ha! If it were me, there would be no way for me to reach such a boundary where life and death are nothing. After today, even if the inn collapses, this little brother will be remembered by everyone. Idiot, he's so anxious even when he wants to die. Is there something wrong with his brain? Cough, cough. Although I don't think these words are too appropriate, I want to say that the person above has the same thoughts as me. Disregarding the chaos on the network, the cultivators in front of their screens were all dumbfounded. They looked at the black-robed figure that occupied the entire screen. Ate it. He really ate it.